is 5:30 and I'm calling this meeting to order. First, a reminder that meetings of the Select Board are meetings conducted in public. They are not meetings of the public. Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted by the Select Board so long as order is maintained. The rules for public comment are: at the conclusion of a Select Board discussion on an agenda item, but before any action is taken, there may be 10 minutes afforded to public comment. Comments made by the public must be addressed to the chair or to the Select Board as a whole and not to any individual members of the Select Board or members of the public. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, they shall not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. Order and decorum shall be maintained throughout the meeting. Personal, impertinent, threatening, or profane remarks will not be tolerated. For those who are participating via Zoom, please note that chat is not an appropriate avenue for public comment. All public comments must be made verbally when acknowledged by the chair. Please silence all cell phones, and a reminder to all that this meeting is being recorded and may appear on the internet. So, do we have adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
All right. Does anybody else have an adjustment to the agenda? No? All right. Then moving on to approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of February 8th, 2023.
I was just a little confused by the language in the last couple sentences in section 4, and I know what happened, so it makes sense, but it doesn't. Peg moved to reconsider the minutes. I think she would have moved to approve the minutes I'm not sure it matters. It's just, it's a little confusing how it's written, and I just want.
I think we actually did say to reconsider the minutes.
That's fine.
It was basically to reopen that discussion so that she could add
Yes.
this in there. So if that's not clear, we can make it clearer.
I think it's clear.
Okay,
I just wanted
all right.
to.
I warmed it up for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the minutes? I think they summarized our meeting pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay, so hearing no comments, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there public comment in the room? Is there public comment online? Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I have two brief points, and you will understand why I wish to pause briefly after the first one. Now is the final Town of Putney Select Board meeting of Selectman Josh Laughlin's final term. Having known and worked with many Vermont and Quebec municipal and school legislators, I can attest that he is among the very best, an elder statesman. Thank you, Josh, for so much.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
And my second point, Madam Chair, is I'm wondering when will new Select Board candidates be introducing themselves to voters, because Vermont statute says that they cannot do so during town meeting.
What is that?
Saturday.
It's March 4th.
March 4th is a
Candidates
forum.
Putney Huddle.
The Putney Huddle is sponsoring it. I believe it's at the community center.
Yes.
Um,
The information is on our town Facebook page, and I believe it's on the website as well.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Fairman?
Sorry. Yes, it does. Thank you to our town manager. I went off of the observation that not everyone is on Facebook, including yours truly. So I respectfully suggest that anything that is on Facebook should also be on the Town of Putney website, where, yes, I am on websites. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is it on the website or not yet?
Yes, because I had Kim put it on the website, and then I have Cass copy the link onto the Facebook page.
Okay. And I can pass the word to the Putney Huddle to maybe print out some paper copies to paste town around. I don't think I've seen them around, but has anybody seen? Anyway, we'll make sure that it's well advertised. Is there other public comments online?
Okay. A quick response to Mr. Fairman. Thank you very much for your kind words. And just want to say, and I hope to say a few words at town meeting, but it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate everybody who participates in so many different ways. And we couldn't all do it without each other. So, get involved. And Mr. Fairman, you have certainly been one of the most involved of non-elected officials, and that is very much appreciated. It adds value to our discussions and our outcomes, and that's important. And many people could take an example from you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other select board comments?
I have just a question. Is there a way that we can be looking at the other people who are participating and not at ourselves? It is.
Hold on a
Yes.
Let's not close that.
Yeah, don't-
They can look at us. I mean, I
I just
just.
like to do
It is a
I don't need to look at us.
How about that? Is that good?
That's probably
That's probably
it
as good
for
as it
the-
gets.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when somebody else comes on, because
Okay.
usually we have the sort of
Yeah,
6 or
yeah,
7
yeah,
boxes.
Yeah.
I think it's
That's
just that there's
fine.
only 2
Is
cameras.
that okay?
Yeah, that's
You can show
Gal.
non-video participants, so you can see everyone who's online.
Well, we have the list there.
Oh, if you can read that far, that's. If we did what's it look like if we do non-participation, non-video participants? Can you just click on that for just a minute?
How's that?
Yeah, that's better for me. I don't know about other
It works for
people.
me as long as I can see all the hands.
Do you want me to like close this side?
No,
Why don't
yeah.
we just leave it this way for now so
Right.
that there's double the chance that I won't miss.
Adjustment.
Yes.
period.
Yeah,
Yes.
I tend to try and keep an eye on that right side just
Yeah.
to catch it if you
Okay,
want.
yeah, good.
Usually, but-
Yeah,
Thank
one of
you.
us,
That's
one of us
just
will catch it.
helpful.
Okay.
For me to
All right.
know.
Thank you, Peg.
Is there any other public comment online? Any other public comment in the room on items not on the agenda? All right. Moving on to the warrants to the treasurer.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer upon as presented upon completion of review. Karen?
So payroll warrant dated February 24th, 2023 in the amount of $20,566.78.
Normal payroll?
Normal, a little bit of overtime, not as much as last payroll.
Okay.
And the rec league director and concession stand person is in this warrant
Okay.
end of the month.
All right.
Moving on, I have accounts payable dated February 11th through February 24th, 2023 in the amount of $95,035.39. I will point out the Frame Group, Fitzgerald Environmental, are consultants working on 2 projects that we have right now. Greenberg Associates is services, we're looking at Town Hall. Our usual MVP Healthcare, $18,069.03. Simon's Operations, water and sewer for $10,905, and then Southwestern New Hampshire mutual aid is $34,057. Not a whole lot of invoices here, but in a few substantial ones, so they add up.
Karen, can you just, excuse me, explain the Southwestern New Hampshire district?
That is for our mutual aid, so that's fire rescue.
It's essentially the dispatch service
Yes.
in Keene, and it dispatches for the whole region, so we pay, and this is an annual expense for us, and we pay in each year in order for them to provide that dispatch for us.
How is that distinct from rescue?
They dispatch, or I'm not sure right at the moment, but historically, they are not an ambulance service.
Right.
They are only a dispatching service.
So 911, Charlie, you call 911, it goes to New Hampshire, and then it bounces back to Vermont.
Okay.
And the service they provide, which is of tremendous, I mean, it's not an inexpensive thing for us,
No.
but by saying they've serviced the mutual aid system, it allows anybody who's on the mutual aid system, i.e. all the local departments, to intercommunicate through one integrated system. So when we have a call in which we need Brattleboro to come, Westminster to come, or to be in communication with rescuing,
Right.
they're the one who does all that for, they're sort of the coordinator of that as far as communication, but they do all the communication part of it.
Thanks.
Is that about right, Eric?
Yeah, sounds right.
Okay.
Well, you have the experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, are there other comments on the board? Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I realize I've always been curious regarding the, is it Simon Services who take care of our water and sewer treatment?
Yes.
Okay. Do they provide a 24/7 service?
Yes. So Joe Tatro lives here in Putney and works for Simon's. And they carry pagers, and if an alarm goes off, Mr. Fairman, Joe's right there. And so is Tom, actually. So if there's anything major, like the fire department and the highway department sometimes will go out.
But we have contracted them for probably 17 or 18, well, no, I guess, I mean, I was part of the initial, so probably 15 years. I'm not aware of a time when they have not been available to us if we needed them.
Right.
They provide an excellent service for us and have for many, many years.
They're good at what they do, too.
Yes. They've also advised us over the years on expansions and improvements and things like that. So they do many of the municipal systems in the greater area and have a lot of expertise.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Fairman?
Yes, it does, Madam Chair, and I guess I should mention, I was in no way implying any criticism of them. I was simply curious. To the best of my knowledge, they provide excellent service.
Yes.
Yes.
No intention otherwise interpreted, just trying to be thorough in an answer.
And regarding the question about regional dispatch, knowing that one of you is quite familiar with a very large city, out here we have fire mutual aid, which means that when there is a major fire in Putney, for example, regional dispatch will be dispatching fire apparatus from New Hampshire and Vermont, and at the same time will be dispatching other fire apparatus to cover for the stations that have sent fire apparatus here. It is a very elaborate and really quite wonderful system, which ensures that even tiny fire departments, if they need them, have as much fire apparatus and firefighters as they could possibly need. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there any other public comment on the warrants to the treasurer? Online or in the room? Any other comments among the board? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, next
you.
is the town manager's report
Oh, yes.
You bring it?
that you
I did.
printed out and brought into the room.
I did fairly well last time. So tax payments are now delinquent if people have not made it to our office. The balance due for 2022 is $272,374.84. The prior past due is $77,783.10. So that is a total delinquent, as of today, $350,157.94. I have 16 properties I'm looking at right now. I expect that when I start working with some of these folks, that we will get some money in.
16 that are 2 years in arrears.
At least 2 years in arrears.
As of February,
As of-
as of last Friday.
Yeah, as of February 17th, so I will be working on that and keep the select board posted, but some we may not see go to tax sale only because they're mobile homes. And I can work with those people for a payment plan, get them caught up. But I do suspect there will be a handful.
We've said this before, super important. If you don't come in and try and work out a plan, we can't make a plan for you. So
Right.
if you're delinquent on your taxes, the town, Karen in particular, can do everything she can to help you with that. So please seek out that help because it will be to your benefit.
Just an FYI, the preliminary school tax is estimated at 1.8260. So it's a potential increase of 10 cents. Sorry?
10 cents.
10 cents from last year. So I know the supervisory union also will be doing a forum for their candidates. So folks might want to listen into that one too. And I know Ruby McAdoo is running for Putney. So we don't have any control over the school tax, but the voters do. If you vote on a budget. Good news, bank interest went from 0.10% to 1.7% with M&T Bank.
Okay.
So I made a phone call and said, what's up? And they're like, so we're averaging $3,000 a month in interest on our sweep account, where we were only getting like less than $250. And they sat down in December and M&T said it's time to give back to the customers. So that is going to be a nice little windfall.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
When banking works in our favor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Better Connections grant was submitted on February 17th, which was Friday, right at 4 p.m. when it was due. So that was cutting it close. But Lisa Caucasian, Eric Bass, they did a lot of work. Also Pitt, myself, and Mike Costco, everybody chipped in to do the best we could. We needed a lot of information, and we'll see what happens. There's 10 other towns vying for the same pot.
When do we find out?
I'll give it a couple weeks and then we'll start.
For a portion of the same pot, or for only one of those 10 towns will get the entire amount? Do you know?
No, it's only like 3 are gonna get.
3. Okay.
So
Three's better than one.
Right, I was gonna say that.
We did,
Odds just went up.
ask for 67,500, so.
Yeah,
And that is for, if we're awarded, it will be for a master streetscape plan for the village.
nice.
So, fingers crossed, folks. So it is public knowledge at this point that the environmental court affirmed the DRB's issuance of the PRD, conditional use site plan and major subdivision approval for the Windham Windsor Housing Trust project. I did speak to our attorney. Cost to date for the town is $2,846.90. That is not money we can recoup. The appellant now has 30 days to appeal to Supreme Court, so I don't know the intent, and we'll have to sit and wait. So I just wanted to make that announcement. Our future Putney Community Visit Report and Action Plan is available on the town website, and there's a link on the Facebook page if anyone's interested in downloading that now. I do know there will be several hundred copies available that are going to be bound.
Will they be coming here? or-
I don't really know. I mean, this is a community endeavor, with the task forces, so they've kind of kept me out of the loop. I'm just in the back seat, and if I have questions, I will definitely make sure the select board each get a copy. Hoping that we might have some at town meeting to pass out, but most importantly, all of the task forces need to have one first, so. And some of the task groups are big. I know there's 75 on the revitalization of the downtown, and I think 55 for housing, and I don't know for sure of the community center development. So,
Yeah,
things are happening.
things are
It's all
happening.
good. FEMA, so there was another request for more documentation. I got that off to Kim Kanarecki today, so hopefully that can push through and we can see our funds.
So we haven't seen
Still
any-
related to the storm.
Yeah, from the July 29th, 2021 storm.
Yeah, so
So
we haven't seen any of the money yet?
we've seen $207,000.
Okay,
So what happened is, when the storm first happened, and we started submitting our projects, any project over like $135,000 became a large project, and we had 2 of those already submitted. And then FEMA changes the rules. Then they say, oh, if you're a small town, if you get $1 million worth of damage, you can just,
big total.
for any
Oh,
storm,
okay,
right?
yeah.
So they didn't classify like a small project versus a big project.
Yeah,
So anything, $1 million, right? So I'm like, I tried to like debate with Kim Kanarecki. I'm like, listen, you changed the rules. It's like, why are our 2 projects still hung up? We can't pull them out. It's just the way it is. And I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. I'll wait for the money. But it's unfortunate that happens.
Yeah.
But lesson learned.
yeah. Hopefully they don't change them again.
Yeah, it just makes it complicated, and we had to do a lot of extra work
Yeah.
for those 2 big projects. And one project is like $345,000, and the other one's $184,000.
Yeah.
So if we had known that, the 184, I would have split it into 2 different projects.
Yeah.
But, so it is what it is. There's not much, it's out of my control.
And we borrowed money in
We
order
did.
to cover that.
Yeah, so we had a $500,000 line of credit,
Right.
so we could cover the storm costs, which were about $695,000. And then we paid that line of credit back through,
Fully.
through the budget, but we definitely need to see that other money.
It would be nice.
And I would like to
3
see
years
it
on.
before the end of this fiscal year. But
Yeah. Part of the reason I asked is because I know with that line of credit, it was at a variable rate.
Right.
And so, yes, we may be getting a little more interest back, but I'm grateful that it's paid off because
yes.
their interest rates are not what they were when we borrowed that
No,
money. So-
no. And if I recall, I thought our interest on that line of credit was like about $8,000. It was 7,000 something, so. But there's no way we would have been able to pay the storm cost out of the highway operating budget. We would have been majorly in the red. And
Right.
we cannot do business like that.
Right. No, I think it was a good decision.
Definitely.
I do have a comment online, Mr. Fairman.
Madam Chair, did you say my name?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. Coming back to the Windham and Windsor Housing Trust permit, because I have some experience in these matters in the past, I've been following the filings in this matter, and I can share, not as a lawyer, but simply as facts. Judge Durkin dismissed most of the plaintiff's claims and instructed everyone to try mediation for the others. So it appears that mediation has not succeeded, but this may give us some indication of their prospects on appeal before the Vermont Supreme Court. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other public comments online before Karen continues? Okay.
So my last item is I attended the Windham County Sheriff's Office Regional Policing discussion. And it's just a discussion right now. There were several towns there. And the majority, agrees that we should be looking at some sort of regionalization, but because there's 27 towns in the county and they are spread out, and you start getting over to Wilmington and Londonderry and that area, it's pretty sparse. So I think there's going to be more discussion on it. It sounds promising. Sheriff Anderson is trying to see if the animal control program might work.
As a countywide?
Yeah. So we don't know what it looks like yet. But, somebody brought up the idea about like the school districts, how we have the school districts all broken out, and maybe doing a model like that. And
Regional as opposed to countywide, maybe, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And or limited to each town.
Yeah. But there's a lot more discussion to be had, and I understand too, the fire departments are doing the same thing through a different avenue. So I had a small talk with Tom about that, so I will be engaging with him more on that.
So were all 27 towns represented at that meeting, or?
No.
Okay.
Maybe half.
Was it just towns that have contracts with the sheriff already?
I think no, because Newfane was there and they don't have a contract with them. So,
Okay.
yeah. Athens, Brookline was there.
Uh-huh.
People were online, but
So the other towns in the county who don't have a contract with the sheriff, what are they doing? Just relying on state?
the state and, sometimes the sheriff will show up if they're in that area, depending on the call. But,
Neighborhood watches.
Right.
yeah. So I do have the information from that discussion. I was thinking I may put it on the website
Okay, yeah.
with the sheriff's reports. which is under Community Link, Sheriff's Department.
So that's where it is on the website? Okay, good to know.
Just so people know. That's all I have.
All right. Any other questions among the select board? On town manager's report? Any comments in the room? Public comments in the room? Public comments online, Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I take the liberty of noting that among the 27 towns that have been mentioned, of course, Brattleboro, Bellows Falls, Wilmington, and Dover have their own police departments. And of course, in the case of Wilmington and Dover, there are thousands of second homes there. So the population on the weekend is many, many times what we see in the census. But I also would comment that it seems to me that Sheriff Anderson's idea is brilliant because it dovetails so nicely with community policing and with, I've forgotten the name for it now, but it was pioneered in New York City, that they would base police presence on crime statistics. And it would be possible to implement both of those throughout all the towns that wish to be involved, and probably saving us all money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more public comments online? Any other discussion on the select board? All right, moving on to boards, committees, and commissions. We don't have anything under there. So that brings us to select board items, new business. And the first thing under there is local alternatives, Putney Landing, sidewalk feasibility, select board review, discussion, and approval. So,
So in your packet are two documents, one from Mr. Fairman and one from Jeanette White.
yeah.
And these were sent prior to the new alternatives that you have in your packet. So these two correspondences relate to the last
Earlier.
set
Okay.
of plans, okay? So not to be confused, and I did not put the old alternatives in here because I did not want to confuse anyone,
Okay,
okay? And Chrissy is here from Dufresne Group.
great.
Pep is here. So
Okay.
I'm not quite sure if you want to address the two correspondences
Yeah, so I
relating
think,
to the last meeting.
I think especially since we've gotten some new information from the last time, we are probably not gonna make a decision tonight, unless we need to. Do we need to?
No, I don't recommend you doing that with
Okay.
new information on the table and really no costs associated with them. We haven't seen
Right.
all the information
Yeah,
and we're gonna learn more tonight.
okay,
And then I think we need to regroup
okay.
and talk about it. And Josh, unfortunately, you won't be in that process.
But you can always come back and pretend. All right, so I think to summarize, and Mr. Fairman is online, so if I summarize this wrongly, please let me know. But Jeanette's concern was concerned with putting a sidewalk on Putney Landing, putting a crosswalk at the triangle by Rudd's, which is a concern of Mr. Fairman's, and I think probably everyone's as well, that there's problematic traffic patterns there where people are going the wrong way, coming out of Rudd's on the triangle, which would be problematic with also pedestrians walking there. And so I think Jeanette's preference is for Old Depot Road. Mr. Fairman likes the idea of a sidewalk from Old Depot Road near the Dr. Laura Plant's house, crossing an easement between the MT Bank and 802 Credit Union to get to Route 5. Both of these people, one of which lives on Old Depot Road and the other one walks it frequently, don't feel that there's a need for a sidewalk on Old Depot Road. I know that I went down that road the other day, and it's really narrow. And also there's more than 2 utility poles on the side that we would be planning on putting the sidewalk on. So I didn't really see how we would put a sidewalk there. I do know that as far as state funding is concerned, or I think I know, that as far as state funding is concerned, there needs to be connectivity in some way. So there needs to be a sidewalk or a landing or some indication that people are using a safe way to walk to get to the crosswalk. So all that being said, what have other people had a chance to look at these?
I have had a chance to look at it. My question about Old Depot Road is exactly what you just said, is if we do not put a sidewalk in, does that preclude our being able to get state funding for any part of the project?
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so my understanding is if Old Depot Road is the choice, then the state won't fund that because it's a town.
Oh, it's a town, so they won't fund it at all.
It's a town road.
Oh, so it doesn't
Correct.
have to do with the connectivity there, it has
No.
to do with...
Because it's a town road, not a
Okay.
state road, okay? The other thing too is, I spoke with Mark Pickering and I spoke with Brian Harlow. So I spoke with Brian Harlow this week, he is our road foreman, and I showed him the plans, the previous plans, and his comment about Old Depot is the road's not wide enough. Although, and Chrissy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or Pip, because you got your head in this project too. So the proposed sidewalk is to be on the inside of the telephone poles. So basically from the edge of the road, it's gonna be past the telephone poles. There were 2 poles that needed to be removed and replaced somewhere else. Jonathan Johnson and I went out today and we measured in front of the Laura Platts building because they do have a sidewalk there. So from the edge of the road to the edge of the sidewalk, it was 20 feet, and then the sidewalk's another 5 feet. So that's 25 feet right there from the edge of the road to the inside of the sidewalk. So plowing could be a problem because it is a narrow street. It's nice and flat, it'd be perfect for, you know, a sidewalk. I spoke with Mark Pickering. There were at least 1 or 2 alternatives that the state did not like in the first round of plans because of drainage on Putney Landing Road. His comments to me, he said if we get the Better Connections grant, that will allow somebody to look at everything
Okay.
from the town line through that triangle up until, you know, Basketville, right?
So from the Dummerston line all the way to,
Not the Dummerston, well, yeah, the
Well,
Dummerston
yeah.
line where our town sign is,
yeah,
up through.
yeah.
So if we get that, then the master streetscape plan would probably capture that whole triangle. And I agree that we should continue building sidewalks for connectivity and mobility. How we do that and with what funds is gonna be the question. So what we don't wanna do is put the cart in front of the horse. And as far as the roundabout goes, if that is something the town wants to pursue, you need to write a letter to the state. And that will be several years of planning. There's gonna be a lot of negotiating. The town would have to get right away. The conversation about the town taking over Route 5 from the town line to maybe River Road, which means we would have to maintain, pave, plow Route 5. And I don't even wanna have that discussion right now, because that is like, that's huge.
Wait, I don't understand how the roundabout connects to the town taking over the whole Route 5.
It's called penance, Peg.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we wanted to take over Route 5, we can pretty much do anything
Whatever
we
we
want.
want,
We can
okay.
put crosswalks anywhere we want, we can
Traffic
do
calming.
sidewalks. It's a state road. Not only is it a state road, it's a federal road as well, federal highway. And
Under federal jurisdiction.
Yes.
Right.
Mr. Fairman pointed out.
Yes.
It's a state
Not a
road.
federal road, but it is, that's what I was trying to
Yes.
say last.
So
Under
not
federal
only would the
jurisdiction.
state be involved, but the feds would too.
Right, but these are two separate things, right? Doing a roundabout at the south end of town and the town taking over the entire Route 5 up
Yeah,
to
they're two
River
different
Road. They're two
things.
different things.
I think
Yes.
the point is that if we wanted to move quickly on this, we would take over the whole road and then we could do what we want,
Right.
whenever we want,
Right.
with our own money that we have.
Wait, but correct me if I'm hearing, I mean, it sounded like Mark's opinion, and I apologize last week, I called him Mark Chickering, and I've met Mark, I've worked with him, sorry, Mark. Mark Pickering, it sounds to me like he was sort of inferring that if we wanted to be able to have a roundabout, we would likely have to do that, or is it just a matter of expedience?
No, it's expedient.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I misunderstood.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand
Yes.
what the relationship between the two is. So you're saying that if we wanted it to happen faster, the quickest way to do it would be that it's easier to take over the whole road and then do what we want than to petition just to do the roundabout on the
Right.
south end.
And let's be careful too, because right now it's a state road, we know we can get state funding. So if we take over Route 5, well, we may lose all
You
that.
didn't hear me
So-
proposing anything to that. I'm just trying to get clear.
So I do have a bunch of people online. I see Deborah and Elizabeth. I do have Chrissy Haskin here
Yeah.
online first. I'd like to talk to her first, and then we can take public comment. Chrissy?
Hi. So I just wanted to comment on a few things that have been discussed. So I think you mentioned that the state wouldn't fund a sidewalk on Old Depot Road because it's a town road. The state actually would fund a sidewalk. They can fund it through the Bike Ped program or the Transportation Alternatives program. There are other funds that are only available to state roads, but in terms of a sidewalk, you can use those two programs on town roads. So
Okay,
it is
okay.
possible to do.
That's good
And
to
then-
know. Thank you.
Also on that, we talked last time about how the V-Trans is looking for the sidewalk, the study to have connection to somewhere. So we can't just dump people out on Old Depot Street. Old Depot Road. We need to connect them to something.
Mhm.
And I understand there is that short section of existing sidewalk. However, the intent of this study was to connect Putney Landing apartments to the existing sidewalk network. And so in order to do that, we do need to have that connection, and V-Trans is not going to like we'll just have them walk along the road because there's not a lot of traffic.
Okay.
So that's why you'll see in our alternative 3, we did update that a little bit. We left the sidewalk along Old Depot. I think Karen mentioned there was 20 feet of roadway there,
Yes.
which is enough to provide a sidewalk off the side of it. We wouldn't be encroaching into the roadway at all. It would be off the side. We would have to move some poles. But what we did was we phased it out in that alternative so that you could, as a town, choose to construct the section from Route 5 over to Old Depot Road across the bank, across a potential bank easement. You could do that as a phase 1. And then maybe you could do some improvements to the gravel pathway that goes into, over to Putney Landing Apartments. And maybe you do phase 3, which is the sidewalk along Old Depot Road, or maybe you don't. So that gives the town a little bit of flexibility in that alternative while still complying with what V-Trans is going to want to see in the alternatives.
When you say, so can I ask a question?
Sure.
When you say V-Trans, what they want to see, is that in terms of funding, or is that in terms of being able to get a crosswalk between, over Route 5?
That's in terms of the funding. So I think if the scoping study is to connect Putney Landing Apartments. So if the scoping study was to connect Old Depot Road, just going from Route 5 across a potential bank easement to Old Depot Road, connecting to that little short section of sidewalk there would be adequate. But the intent of the study is to connect Putney Landing Apartments, so we need to actually extend down there to meet the intent of the study.
Gotcha.
Okay, I have a question, Chrissy. So in terms of the 3 phases and the funding, are you saying that if we phased it, we could actually get funding for the first phase, but without doing this, without the second or third phase? Like, where does the funding fall into the phasing part of it?
Sure. So by providing those 3 phases to get the full connection over to Putney Landing Apartments, we satisfy the intent of this scoping study, the goal of this scoping study. Mm-hmm. And then by phasing it, that would allow you to, let's say you want to apply for a grant through V-Trans to do the phase 1. So from Route 5 over to Old Depot Road. So we would actually break it up in the study to propose phases. For that, we have individual cost estimates for each phase that you could then use to apply for funding. And you could justify that portion of, hey, we're going to do phase 1 to connect over to Old Depot Road, and there is a sidewalk there that we can connect to. Mm-hmm. And then, down the road, if you wanted to do more, you can apply as a phase 2 or phase 3. And you don't have to do them in any particular order either.
Okay. That's all good to know. Is there other comments among the select board before I move it to public comment?
I just think it's important to highlight what Chrissy said about this potential sidewalk along Depot Road falling outside of the footprint of the road. It does not decrease the width of the road.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's good to know too.
What it does is it takes it out of the properties, into the people who live on that side of the road. I mean, and I understand.
It's within our right of way.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I just want to name it, that's what we're talking about.
It will look, yes.
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 So it will, I get that.
And I'm sure there's mixed opinion about this. I think some landowners, it gives definition to their property in a positive way and improves, but that has definitely been a topic as we have gotten rights away.
Aware of it.
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we're talking about it won't come out of the road. I just wanted to be clear where it will come out.
Right.
The abutting property.
Do you have something to add to, is it public comment or is it as a member of the planning commission? Pip.
I'm not sure I can separate those.
Okay, let me go, I'll put you in the queue. So I have 3 hands up online and one comment in the room. So I'm gonna go in the order that I think they came up. So it was Deborah, Elizabeth, Mr. Fairman, and then Pip. So Deborah, you're up.
Thank you. I'm zooming in from Tampa, Florida. There is not an existing sidewalk, but a driveway that goes through the bank that people, I think, are permitted to walk on. So spending a lot of money on a sidewalk where there's just right next door a bank driveway that goes through doesn't make a lot of sense. In terms of the circle, I sent you all a letter from Mark Pickering that said all you had to do was ask him to look at the idea and he will do a study for Putney and it won't cost us anything. So Karen, I don't know, did you get that letter from me where Mark Pickering said all I need is a letter from the select board? So I would like to request that you agree to have Mark Pickering move this forward and do a study for free for the town of whether or not there's a feasibility on putting a circle at that intersection.
So
Okay.
I spoke to Mark Pickering today, Deb, and you're right. So we need a letter from the town, which we.
Yeah, that's all you need. You don't need to become your own little unit town.
Deb, please don't, Deb,
Contact him.
Deb? Karen was speaking, okay, so I'll call on you again, but can you please let her finish her sentence? Go ahead, Karen. Sorry.
So the select board would have to move ahead with that if we wanted to write a letter to Mark Pickering. Not knowing what's going to happen with the better connections, you have to take that into consideration as well. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Deb, did you have another comment?
Just one follow-up. You really just need to ask him to look at it, think about it. I sent you all an email, every select board member, and I think Karen, and so if you just say, why don't you look at this possibility, it won't cost us anything, we don't need a grant for it, the state will look at the possibility of the circle going there. And I know it's gonna take a long time, but it's a solution for that triangle that is very confusing. And thank you, I'm gonna stop now.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth?
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to echo on what Karen had said earlier about not putting the cart before the horse and allowing the BCRD process and a master plan to be comprehensive developed for this little village, and not just be throwing up sidewalks and other things without a really community engaged and supported master plan, which I know I'm not the only one who's asking for that, given the incredible attendance at the BCRD and the number of people who have signed up for the committees is significantly more than attend any of these meetings.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, first a question which may be addressed to Ms. Haskins, but maybe to you folks, I'm not sure. Are we still considering a sidewalk across Putney Landing Road and US Route 5 through the triangular island there?
Well, we have all of the alternatives in front of us, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I do have some questions about that, if I may proceed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I shall be brief. First, I am well aware with whom we are dealing, and I think you all should know that Ms. Haskins is an exceptionally qualified civil engineer who holds bachelor's and master's degrees, is licensed by the state of Vermont as a professional engineer, and is vice president of the distinguished Dufresne Group civil engineering practice that is heir to renowned Dufresne Henry that I remember when they were just Mr. Dufresne and Mr. Henry. Now, I note that the very first tenet of the American Society of Civil Engineers Code of Ethics is, I quote, "First and foremost, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public." Mindful that we are discussing a scoping study, during my career as computer systems and software engineer, I have performed a scoping study now and then, which necessarily identified any factors that would preclude further action, as Ms. Haskins and I shall be discussing. Introducing our topic to select persons, town manager, and the public, I am referring to the Vermont Agency of Transportation guidelines for pedestrian crossing treatments. Compliance with these guidelines justifies a required Vermont Agency of Transportation permit to install this proposed crosswalk across US Route 5 and Putney Landing Road, that is an interstate highway access road. Ms. Haskins, I shall ask you some questions about applying 4 of these guidelines to this proposed crosswalk and may clarify your answer now and then to fully understand your professional opinion, not to debate you. Putney Landing Road, which is an unsignalized intersection, stop or yield sign controlled approaches.
Mr. Fairman, hold on for 1 second.
I'm just a little confused because based on what you read at the beginning of the meeting, the conversation shouldn't be going between Mr. Fairman and Chrissy, right?
You're right, yes.
So I'm comfortable with what's
Yeah. So,
going on
Mr.
here.
Fairman, if you could summarize your questions, and then if Chrissy could get back to us at a later date, that would be great.
Okay, fine. Be glad to.
Thank
So
you.
as I say, this is an unsignalized intersection with stop and yield signs. First, guideline 2.2, installation of stop or yield line, which states that a crosswalk across Putney Landing Road should be at least 4 feet after the existing stop line. Dufresne Group have placed this proposed crosswalk as far as 75 feet before the existing stop line. I cannot find a guideline permitting a crosswalk before a stop line. My question to our engineer is, what say you about this? Second, guideline 2.2.4, pedestrian warning signs, which states, referring to this type of intersection, there shall be no pedestrian crossing signs installed at the marked crosswalks, nor shall advanced pedestrian warning signs be installed on the stop or yield controlled approaches to an intersection. Dufresne Group said during the February 13, 2023 public hearing that pedestrian crossing and advanced pedestrian warning signs will be installed at and approaching this proposed crosswalk. I cannot find a guideline permitting these signs, so that's another question for our engineer. Then pedestrian refuge island. So third, guideline 5.3.2, pedestrian refuge island, which states, medians and center refuge islands at intersections and mid-block locations provide a waiting area for pedestrians and eliminate the need for pedestrians to cross both directions of traffic at once. Medians and center refuge islands provide the benefit of turning a two-way street into 2 one-way streets from the perspective of the intersection. The proposed center refuge island and crosswalk from there to the existing Main Street sidewalk do require pedestrians to cross both directions of traffic at once, unexpectedly from their perspective, so they may not look for uncontrolled northbound US Route 5 traffic. So my third question then to our engineer is, I cannot find a guideline permitting a center refuge island that directs pedestrians into two-way traffic. Finally, US Route 5, which is categorized as an unsignalized intersection, uncontrolled approaches. So, fourth guideline, 2.4.1, criteria for installation states, a crosswalk should not be installed at an intersection on a roadway approach that is not regulated by a traffic signal, a stop sign, or a yield sign, unless all of the following 6 criteria are met. I'm questioning 3 of the criteria. Do we know that there are 20 or more pedestrians using the crossing per hour during the highest pedestrian volume hour? Then, do we know that the annual average daily traffic for the roadway, both directions combined, exceeds 3,000 vehicles per day? Remember, these are state criteria. Finally, do we know that adequate sight distance equal to or exceeding the stopping sight distance for the posted speed is available in both directions, given that a northbound driver may be distracted by and unable to see beyond other vehicles' turning movements within the busiest intersection in Putney? Now, quoting further from the guidelines, when a proposed crosswalk is associated with a new development, change in land use, or new pedestrian facilities, an engineering study may be used to predict which of these criteria will be met once the development or facility has been constructed. So my final question to our engineer is, have you or your colleagues completed an engineering study confirming that all 6 of these criteria will be met? And finally, I thank you all for listening, and I shall provide, afterward, I'll email to you, and you can forward to our engineer the actual document from which I've been reading so that she may refer to my precise questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, in the interest of time, I'd rather not answer those in public meeting. If we could forward those and have Chrissy respond at a later date, if that's okay with you, Chrissy?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, great.
And Madam Chair, I am in complete agreement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pip?
Thanks. Trying to separate my planning commission role or sort of grant writer from my kibitzing about a design. You know, as a designer, it's hard not to do both. So I think that the conversation could come back to the intent of the grant, which is how best, is there a need for pedestrian access from Putney Landing to the sidewalk network?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, are we seeing a solution here that seems like a reasonable solution for that? I had this feeling that we got seduced by conversations about the roundabout, which, if it were to be developed, is years, many more, on a much, much longer development, design, and construction calendar than the relatively long calendar that we'd be talking about, simply to get a pedestrian walkway from Putney Landing, negotiating the situation at the triangle and somehow getting over to the existing sidewalk. And the nearest existing sidewalk is over in the neighborhood of the co-op, or the library, or the Yellow Barn parking lot, you know, that neighborhood. So if that's the intent of the grant, I think that also concerns in detail about whether where a sidewalk would go on Depot, I don't know whether evaluating that is as high a level as a decision as to whether or not walking on Depot Road, whether that is the best way to solve the problem of getting to the sidewalk network. And in the initial presentations, it was sort of like, yeah, this is how it was set up. There's already a pedestrian walkway out to Depot Road, and you could get from Depot Road to the sidewalk, and here's how you could do it. But it's going to be hundreds and hundreds of feet longer than any other solution, and you'll be walking perhaps in a direction that doesn't feel like it's the most direct connection to the sidewalk. If you were going north, it might not make a lot of difference. If you're going to the general store, it might not make a lot of difference. If you wanted to go south to the co-op or to the library even, it might not feel like the best solution. So with that in mind, I was wondering whether one of the original solutions of coming along the path along the right-of-way, either onto the former Curtis land, or not, with a retaining wall. Once you end up down in the neighborhood of the complex triangle, the solutions that showed an option of just continuing further north on the side of Rods, and then at some point, when you're past the tip of the island, crossing, that as a concept seemed to be a really positive concept for me. And I'm wondering whether Chrissy would be, is wedded to the notion of the crosswalk at the triangle, because it seems like it's really complex. It introduces all sorts of issues, and certainly has, the members of the public seem to be very concerned about the safety aspects of that. So I'm wondering whether that could be avoided by simply walking a bit further north past the Curtis barbecue driveway, past the two driveways of Rods, to some distance where it was appropriate and safe to cross. So that was my sort of design idea. All thinking about the big picture of getting pedestrians from Putney Landing to the sidewalk as efficiently as possible. And also a comment that is hard sometimes to acknowledge when your frame of reference might be spending your hard-earned money on things around your house, where you do not want to move that window or replace that window once you've spent $4,000 on the, the doors out to the terrace. But in this case, when there's so much up in the air about a potential grant that we may get in 6 months to hire someone to begin to look at the big picture, I think pursuing these individual pursuing this one smaller aspect isn't going to preclude any of the solutions that might happen in the future. And if there were to be a roundabout, that whole area is just getting completely torn up. And if there were a sidewalk there, I don't really know whether the roundabout provides the safest way for a pedestrian to get across through the intersection anyhow. It's a different set of pedestrian problems at a roundabout. So whether or not there's a roundabout, I guess I'm promoting this idea that maybe we get a response from Chrissy about avoiding the challenges of crossing at the triangle and seeing whether it's reasonable to cross some distance in front of the tip of the triangle going north on 5. So one last comment is that if this were a well-designed construction project, it might be possible to clearly define the driveways into Curtis's and Rod's, and I would suggest that it may be an opportunity to consider merging the southern driveway of Rod's and Curtis's. That's really typical for most site plans, is that you wouldn't allow multiple driveways next to each other on a significant intersection. You'd really try to minimize it. In fact, there are communities that only allow one way in, two-way traffic, one curb cut, and you resolve all of your circulation issues on your site, and you get everything turned around and all the big trucks and whatever, and then you just send them out, in the other direction from the way they came. That's really typical site planning. So with that in mind, it may be an opportunity to improve some of the safety aspects of that by reducing the number of curb cuts.
Okay.
Thank you.
I do think that we did get some, that's part of the updates, right? So we did get some updates that move, they still have the crosswalk.
So I gave Chrissy permission to share.
Okay.
So if she wants to share the new designs.
Oh, share the screen?
Yeah, share.
Yeah, Chrissy, could you share the newer designs you have? And can I just get a quick, Deb and Elizabeth, do you still have your hands up?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay, so after Chrissy talks, I'll have I'll have Julie, and then I'll have Elizabeth comment. But let's see these designs first. Okay, so which ones? This is alt 1A, and can you remind us again what that one is? That the one with the retaining wall?
So 1A is no retaining wall. This one would require the easement across Curtis Barbecue. So what we did is we revised this figure to show an option instead of crossing at the larger intersection, to show an option of continuing further north and crossing where the pedestrians would be completely clear of all merging traffic, and it would be just crossing Route 5.
Okay.
On alternative 1B, this is the one that keeps the sidewalk off of the Curtis Barbecue property, but requires a retaining wall. And again, we also added that option to continue further north and cross further north instead of crossing at the larger intersection.
Go ahead.
Christy, in both of these, the plan changed in terms of accessing Putney Landing from that corner point. It changed so that it's accessing over by the utility building or whatever that is over there, right?
Yes, that is correct. There was a comment in the public meeting that we had that noted that privacy might be impacted for those units directly adjacent to sidewalk coming off the corner. And so we extended it down to come off of next to the maintenance building to not affect privacy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, and then, you explained alt 1B, which, and in these, would, I guess we wouldn't have the crosswalk necessarily at the triangle. That's an option, but we could say that we don't want it there. We want it up above, next to the bank.
Correct. So the option would be to eliminate crosswalk at the triangle and put it up closer to the bank.
Question. Chrissy asks, with the new design going over towards, not to the corner of the Putney Landing, but over to that utility area, does that change the slope of that sidewalk there? Does that give you a little bit more of a run? I was walking there this weekend and it seemed like that might allow the sidewalk to be a little bit less steep.
I would have to check the slopes. It might be slightly less steep, but the original, the previous plan of connecting over to the corner in between the two units, that wasn't exceeding 5% anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So all three didn't change, right?
Well, alternative 2 had the same modification as 1A and 1B to provide an option to extend further north with the crosswalk instead of at the triangle.
But that's still not a preferred option because of the way that it's going up, what that road is.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a very steep option, and that's I don't think that would be I don't think that would be feasible for you to maintain, and there also is practicality issues with people with any sort of mobility issue getting up and down it.
Okay.
Alternative 3 didn't change. We just added in some phasing.
Okay. So the dashes are intended to indicate a phase.
Correct. So the solid line from Route 5 over to Old Depot we're calling that phase 1. And then we have a dashed line along Old Depot. We called that one phase 3. And then phase 2 just improving the gravel path into the apartments.
Okay. And to be clear, in order to get a crosswalk over Route 5, we would need to have that piece between the banks, right? It wouldn't be enough to terminate it in the parking lot.
Correct. You have to have a pedestrian landing area on both sides of the road, and V-Trans is going to want you to go somewhere, not just dump people into a parking lot.
Okay. Okay, so that's in order to get a crosswalk anywhere on Route 5, we have to have some place to dump people into, in general.
Yes.
Be crude about it.
And what about wheelchair, stroller, walker accessibility on a gravel path?
So gravel path can be accessible. It does have to be properly maintained. So gravel path is going to require more maintenance. One option, so frequently, I know you have a lot of concrete sidewalks in town. Concrete's not typically used on these kind of cross-country paths, just for the character of it and then also the cost. So one option here could be asphalt. That would give you a nice hard surface that requires less maintenance. And it's not as it's more expensive than gravel, but it's not as expensive as concrete. So that's an option we could incorporate into a cost estimate if you wanted to consider asphalt there.
Okay. And then you gave us an alternative 4.
Yeah, so the alternative 4 was just a very high level. We pulled a roundabout from Manchester, Vermont. It's a roundabout that is accessible to tractor trailer trucks. They can get all the way around it. The center of it is a mountable surface, so they can drive over it. So just for kind of sizing purposes, we pulled that and just dropped it into here. This concept, so you can see we kind of just ended the sidewalk line at it. Obviously you wouldn't cross across the middle of it. you would cross one of the legs of it. And you would end up crossing multiple legs of it, actually. But this option would require a lot more evaluation, a separate study to look at the actual dimensions of what really should be here. We just did a very high level, see what it looks like to see if it's even remotely feasible to fit one.
All right. Okay, thank you. So I have a bunch of hands up. Karen, can you scroll down a little bit on there? Because there's one person that can't even see their name. That's good. Okay. So I have, oops, no, I don't have anybody.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-oh.
I think it's because we're sharing.
Oh yeah, could you end their share? I can see that. Okay, thank you.
There you go.
All right, so I'd like to do this to get everybody who's not spoken as well. So I have Julie, and then I have Doug, and then I have Bryce in the room, and then I'll get to Elizabeth and Deborah. Okay, so Julie, Doug, Bryce, Elizabeth, Deborah. Julie, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm not doing well with Zoom tonight. Excuse me, thank you for hearing me. I am Julie. We are the owner of Rods, which is definitely being mentioned a lot here. I personally, with that area, it is extremely unsafe. I mean, I am a little confused why, again, I've heard Howard say, I believe it's Howard, where it's not up to the people to make sure things are safe. Like, this is something that was put in there. I know it wasn't this past summer, but the summer before, we had a little 6-year-old guy that was definitely up on making his way from the apartment building up into the co-op area, and then walking down through. Obviously, we have kids in this housing. I'm scared to cross over from Rod over to the co-op. We do it almost every single day. I also am curious too, how much has been looked at as I watched something happen. I think it was Monday. We're in ski season right now. Obviously, we have the Sunoco right off the exit, and we have us right off the exit. So people in this particular area are getting off the exit for the services that are provided. So we have a lot of outer staters who I love. We love to service them. We want them in our community. We want them supporting our businesses. But they have no idea how any of this works. So I am concerned of us. Again, yes, our community is gonna understand that this is a dangerous triangle, but the people that constantly come into our community that have no idea how that area works have no clue. I watched a local that was turning into the co-op, and this big Bronco from Connecticut was coming out to get back on Route 5, where it's definitely very well, the signage that you do not come back out that way to go there. They almost hit head on in this, going into the co-op, coming out of the co-op. So I personally I'm right across the street there. I watch everything right there. It is very, very, very dangerous there. I don't think any of us should be crossing there. And I am curious how much we look at the fact that all of this is happening right off of our exit in between two areas that we are servicing 91. I guess that's kind of my point here. So thank you guys for hearing me out. And yes, it is very busy with our shop. I'm so thankful for that. I hope our community is thankful for that. But this is a very clustered area there. So thank you guys.
Okay, thank you. Doug, you put your hand down. Do you still want to comment? Doug, you're up.
I'm sorry, did you call my name?
Yes, I did.
Okay, stay on, Julie. I've got something for you. And could Chrissy share her screen showing the entire area? It doesn't matter which sidewalk, but just the entire area, which shows Rod's, Curtis's, the co-op, and the intersection. I have an idea that I've been really contemplating here.
Okay,
If you
Chris-
can share that screen,
Chrissy, could
I'll
you
guide you through it very quickly.
All right, Chrissy, could you share one of those?
I can't probably point at it, but I'll explain. So, Julie, let me just orient myself to the picture here. Where's the,
Yeah, not that one, maybe, maybe one of the other ones.
show the island, with the island and.
That's good,
There
yeah.
we go. Okay. So I was thinking a roundabout is the solution. Then I realized you don't want to have a crosswalk or anything going through that roundabout. It's got to be somewhere like the one you have up there on the upper left-hand corner, a far distance from the roundabout, so people as they come through don't run over a person crossing. So the thought I had was if you were to block off Rod's entrance, exit, whatever that is, closest to the triangle, and only have one access at the northwest corner of your property. And it might have to be a little wider, but it's a pretty wide access. So you have one entrance exit there, and it's 2 lanes of traffic, and then eliminate the little one-laner on the north side of the triangle. Put a barricade across right along the property line of Curtis's. Extend the Curtis's property line where all the cars are parked. Put a barrier there, something that's very physical, so it's an actual entrance to Curtis's off of the 91 access. All traffic, therefore, coming up, bending left to the corner at the co-op. So you don't have the one-way. All you have is a two-way. You can put your crosswalk there. That whole area where the triangle is, including where the road is, could be a park or whatever. Could be something fancy that says, "Welcome to Putney," but no traffic. So you eliminate that whole issue of cars going both ways. And you could put a roundabout in there. You might have to take out some of the forest a little bit south of the woods south of there, but that would allow you room for a roundabout with a coming in from 91 and then going north or south or Carroll, what do you call it? Co-op. So that's my idea. Eliminate the triangle, eliminate the one way, give Rod's one entrance, Curtis's one entrance, and I'll stop there. If you have any questions, I'll explain.
Okay, thanks. I think I understand what you're saying. That is, again, a state road, so that would need to go to the state. So I have Bryce.
I just had a quick question. I wasn't sure if the road that comes up from the Putney Inn, is that a state road or is that a town road?
It's state.
It is a state road. So my only suggestion was instead of having, I know the state more and more is trying to eliminate yield signs. So maybe by eliminating that and putting an actual physical island in the middle of Route 5 and, everybody coming to a 90, they may help traffic patterns that way. And then it gives you an actual way to cross the street there too.
Okay. Thank you. I forget what I said in order. I think I said Elizabeth and then Deborah, and then I have Mr. Fairman. Elizabeth, you're up.
I just had a question.
Is it possible on the sidewalk plan to just simply put a crosswalk in front of the library, put a small piece of sidewalk there for the kids to land onto? Because they do walk on that grass to go to the co-op or to the Lance house, and the kids at the bird fields walk through the grass when they get dropped off of the bus, and have that be just a temporary fix while we are really looking at the entire village as in a master plan.
I don't know. Chrissy, is that an option?
It could potentially be not as an answer to this scoping study, because again, the intent is connect Putney Landing, but as a side piece of it, that it could be an option. It would need to be approved by VTrans.
Okay.
So Mark would be best to answer that, actually.
Okay. I guess that's a question that we could ask the state. Deborah?
Hi. I would like to thank Chrissy for actually showing that image of the amazing possibility of a circle, but my design, which I showed to Karen last summer, and I suggested to Mr. Pickering in February of last year, and I don't know if Karen shared it, but it showed the circle almost identical to what you did, but a little bit south. And my hope was that that circle would actually allow the co-op to have a little bit more driveway space. And Julie, are you here? I showed this design to Julie and I showed it to Karen, and Julie seemed to think it was a good idea. It allows for one entrance for both the top and the garage. So if you could get Julie to respond and say whether or not she thinks it's a good idea. Yeah, Chrissy, it's a little bit lower, which means you'd have to build out a little over that drainage area. But my idea was to have one entrance for both the garage as well as the pristine top property, and they'd have to work out how they would do that.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, sorry, we're not having a back and forth here, and actually the circle is not really on the agenda. It's a great idea, and I think we should keep talking about it, but this is not the time.
So let me just say that her design, Chrissy's design, was very similar in size to what is in front of Cheshire Medical. It's just my idea actually shifted a little bit south, and I was really hoping that extra land could be added to the co-op because there are a lot of people who like to eat there and gather there, and that would help to protect the people that are there.
Okay, I'd like to keep this to the. Although we have an alternative floor with a circle on it, it's really not part of the scoping study at all. So I'd rather keep this discussion to the sidewalk scoping study, which, as Chrissy has reminded us, its end goal is to come up with a feasibility study to connect Putney Landing to Route 5. It's not something that's going to be done at the time that they end this report. It's just a scoping study. So we're not at the end of this going to suddenly ask you all for a whole bunch of money to do this, to do whatever alternative we've got. So I just want to put that out to the public. Josh?
I just have one quick question for Chrissy. Was consideration given to having two crosswalks south at that northern tip of the southern point, so that you would cross Putney Landing Road south of the triangle and then cross Route 5? I don't know whether that makes sense, but instead of crossing to the triangle and back, moving that whole thing south about 100 feet, so you're crossing to the piece of land. I don't know whether that's a viable solution to the issue, but it means you're crossing two streets that have predictable traffic on them.
So instead of going like
exactly
this.
Yeah,
I don't know if you,
I don't know whether that did.
This is something that I brought up, and if you could just put that out just for a second.
And it would include having to add some sidewalk
on the other side
of 5 too, but it.
Karen indicated that there might be a sloping issue. Chrissy, could you speak to that? Can you see?
Sure, I think that option might require some fill in there because it does drop down in that little triangle between Putney Landing Road and Route 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fairman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Four brief points. First one, I congratulate you all once again on your superb deliberations, in which you, Madam Chair, demonstrate that you certainly are a worthy successor to Mr. Laughlin. Next, Julie, I believe that's Ms. Winchester, if I'm not mistaken, is absolutely right. And of course, she sees a lot more of this than I do. The people who are coming who aren't from around here have no idea what they're supposed to do there. And the reason is there is no signage. There are just 2 stop signs. That's all there is. So people wing it as to how they should go. And as far as people coming out of Carroll Brown Way, despite it saying do not come out here, it happens all the time. Next, concerning Putney Landing, my neighbors are absolutely right. Putting the sidewalk where it was supposed to be put, between 2 buildings, what was forgotten was the sidewalk is being put through people's yards. These are townhouses, and people use the space in front and in back just the way anyone uses the space as a yard for children to play and people to sit and visit and all the usual stuff we do when the weather permits. Finally, the question has been raised about a crosswalk involving a roundabout. So since it's brief, I'll tell you the actual standard, which is, I mentioned the guidelines earlier, this is 2.3.1, I'm quoting. A crosswalk may be placed across a roundabout approach if a sidewalk exists on both sides of the approach. This sidewalk must be a minimum of 20 feet in advance of the edge of the circulating lane, by which they mean the circular road. So this is how it can be done, and it meets the standards, and that's how it's done. And I don't think you can see this in Brattleboro, but in Manchester, I'm familiar with the roundabouts up there, and yes, indeed, there are crosswalks, just as I have described. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there other discussion on the board on this topic? Julie and Elizabeth, you both have your hands up still. Elizabeth, did you want to?
Yes, I had a question. If we took over the control of Route 5, is it from the beginning of the town line to where would that part end? Like, can it be just a chunk that's like north of Rods to, maybe just beyond the library? Could it be a small part and we could slow the speed limit down there, which is wherever the buses and majority of pedestrian traffic is occurring?
So the question is, can we take over a small section?
Yeah.
It's recommended by Mark Pickering that from the town line north to River Road.
No, that's a lot.
So
that is a lot.
I take from that. Right.
It's just a thought that could be cost saving and help with a temporary crosswalk while we really work collaboratively to make a better plan for the future.
I don't know if it would be a really fast process either.
Right. It won't.
Yeah.
Mark said it's going to take a while.
But it's an option we could explore at some point. But keep in mind that we would then need to take over the maintenance of the road.
That's why I suggested a small amount.
Yeah. Okay.
Minimize the expense to the town.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that suggestion. Julie?
I need to figure out how to take my hand down, but a couple of things have been mentioned about, and I don't know if this is, there's been 2 people actually 3 speaking about our 2 different drives. Again, I would just be taking into, obviously we're not there yet, but our drive next to Curtis's is obviously the one that best accommodates traffic coming off of I-91. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other public comments online? Doesn't look like it. Are there any more public comments in the room? Peg?
I just wanted to bring us back to what Pip was saying about what the decision is here, and kind of what you were saying too, that we're not making a decision to do anything. We are trying to make a decision about, is there a choice that has been proposed to us that we would like more information about? Is that right? Isn't that what we're choosing? We're choosing,
I believe that's
like, of what we've been offered, which one do we want more details about.
A full report on,
A full
basically,
report
right?
on.
Is that's what we would be getting?
I just had one quick question.
Chrissy could probably.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, Chrissy, can you answer what the end result is supposed to be here? Just so we all understand.
Sure, so you'll end up with our report. We'll outline all of the alternatives that we came up with, descriptions of them, cost estimates, the public feedback on it. We'll outline all of that. Ideally, you'll endorse an alternative, and I've never had it happen where there's multiple alternatives potentially endorsed, like maybe a priority scale, but in this case, maybe you want to do that, maybe because you have some other things that you might want to be looking at, and that might change your decision. So maybe you want to do, hey, we like two of the options, and we need to further investigate, potentially a roundabout or something else before we can really decide, and then we can advance those two and write the study around that.
Okay, that's good to know. Bryce?
I just had two quick questions, or comments. I know that at Hannaford's in Brattleboro, they were able to build like a little 5-foot section, and they were able to make a crosswalk there, so maybe that's an alternative to doing a huge project, just
That's
as a
another
comment.
state road, yeah.
And then I know the question was raised, and I didn't hear that there was ever an answer, but I didn't know if Windham Windsor Housing was participating in helping with funding for this or not.
Well, this is a feasibility study,
Right,
so we're
okay,
not
right.
talking about the construction of anything.
Right. I knew that
So
question.
how to fund the sidewalk later will definitely come
Yeah,
up.
but Windham Windsor Housing Trust is contributing to
this.
the town portion of the cost for this.
Right.
Okay, so that's the answer, yeah.
For the grant.
For the grant, for the feasibility study that we're talking about right now. Okay. I'd kind of like to move on from this, so if there is Mr. Fairman's hands up, but otherwise I'd like to move on to other pieces of our agenda, because we are going to be talking about this again. 1 second, Josh.
I'm just wondering whether, it seems to me, and I don't know whether this is necessary or premature, it seems to me that alternative two, we could
Just
eliminate.
Yeah.
I also, my sense is for the purposes of this study, which has been funded, that the roundabout probably does not apply to this.
Right.
I think exploring a roundabout for the future is a good idea, but I think sort of in the interest of what you're saying, Peg, I think those are two that we can set aside for the purposes of this discussion. And then, I mean, there's 1A and 1B.
And then 3.
Those are questions, and the Depot Road.
Right.
So I just trying to narrow it down.
Yeah, thank you for that. And again, we're going to talk about this again, and you are definitely welcome to come talk to us with that discussion.
And they're open meetings, so
they are
even
open
if I'm
meetings.
not welcome, I can still show up.
That's right. You're always welcome, Josh. One sec, yes.
When the two ladies were here from the landings, at the last meeting that I was at here about the sidewalk, they spoke to the fact that many people don't necessarily go north or to the co-op, but they go to Sunoco. And I have yet to hear anybody say anything about it. But I know that that is quite likely a case that's true. And I don't see how any of these sidewalks relate to that population, that probably a lot of them do walk there.
Yeah, I'll just say that you can build a sidewalk. People don't necessarily need to use it. This study in particular is trying to connect downtown Putney to the landing, not to Sunoco, which is actually in Dummerston. So there may, in the future, maybe someday, we may be able to extend a sidewalk down to the town line. That's that require another study and more funding. But this particular study is focusing on downtown Putney and Putney Landing. So that's why that kind of sidewalk is not on here. And like I said, people may be walking down to the boat launch too. where there's no sidewalk. So, I mean, people can walk wherever they want to, within reason, obviously. But the intent here is to provide a safe way, ultimately to provide a safe way to get across Route 5. Okay, so I do have 3 hands up, and like I said, I would like to move on. So if you can limit your comments to about a minute, I'm going to speed round you, and then we're going to move on. Okay? So Elizabeth, Mr. Fairman, and Deborah.
Thank you. Is there any option to look at a sidewalk that crosses over towards the fire department and then crosses over to Alice Holway Drive? With a crosswalk that's clearly delineated by the fire department, which would support maybe people parking more in that park and ride as well. Just an idea.
It's a conversation that came up. I think the biggest limitation is the alternative we had looked at that followed Newman Road, alternative 2, which is too steep. So you'd still have that same challenge of the steepness, and then you'd have sort of a mirror image steepness on the other side of Putney Landing Road when you arrived at the fire department. That conversation has been had. I don't think it's been explored in depth because it looks more it's a good idea. I think it's more challenging than it appears.
Right, but maybe as we're working towards a bigger plan, because that park and ride could really facilitate a lot more parking opportunities and safe crossing for people, that might be a good thing for us to put in a priority for looking at.
Okay, thanks for that observation. Deborah?
Okay, hi. Can you see me?
Yep.
I can't see me, I don't know where I am now. Oh, there, hi.
Can you hear us?
It's 84 degrees in Tampa right now, okay, so sweating. So I'm really happy that the discussion of the circle seems to offer a solution to the problem. I really like the idea of the sidewalk going up through the forest. Thank you so much for changing that. And, you know, we can adjust where the sidewalk will cross eventually. If we decide to ask the select board to ask Mr. Pickering to make a plan to study whether or not there could be a circle there, which he told me wouldn't cost the town anything.
Deborah, we're not talking about the circle right now. Thank you. Mr. Fairman?
Really? Okay, bye.
Madam Chair, did you call on me?
Yes, I did.
Okay, just very briefly, to clarify a comment that was made earlier regarding the crosswalk on Putney Road from Hannaford across to the other side where Family Dollar is and so on. That crosswalk was added to an intersection already, to a four-way intersection already controlled by traffic lights. In other words, it does not apply in the situation we're dealing here because we'll never have a traffic light controlled intersection in Putney. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So,
can I just make one quick comment?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank Chrissy Haskins for the new alternatives.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think you did an excellent job presenting multiple alternatives, and good job.
yes, thank you. And I guess this will come up again at our next regular select board, not next regular select board meeting, but pretty soon because is there a deadline for us to make a decision? So we'll
clarity
talk
about what we need to make that decision?
Well, what kind of information do you need? Yeah.
Maintenance, we need costs, right, for all, costs and maintenance and, yeah.
So Chrissy, you had updated costs that I don't think made it into our packet.
And the phasing as well.
And the phasing would be great, yeah. So if that's something that you could provide us next time is on the agenda, that would be great.
But I think it's Karen, you have to provide the maintenance cost, don't you?
No.
No?
So you don't want me doing that?
Well, don't we need to know?
No. So here's a question for Chrissy. Chrissy, if the board selects 3 alternatives, can you build in the cost for construction?
Yeah, so we'll put together construction costs. I was working on it and I apologize I didn't get it to you. I felt ill last night and was not able to continue working on it. So I will have that to you and certainly well ahead of your next meeting, hopefully by the end of this week. And we'll also have some maintenance considerations for each alternative as part of our evaluation.
Okay.
Great, thanks,
Great,
Chrissy.
thank you.
Can I make a suggestion that at your next regular select board meeting, whenever that is, after you've reseated, et cetera, Deb Lazar did make a formal request of the select board to ask. So I'm just suggesting it's either that it would be an agenda item on the next select board meeting to address the request. Address the request that was given to us.
Yep, that's a good suggestion. So we'll make a note of that for, if not the next one, the next soon after. Okay, so if there's no other further discussion among the board, I'd like to move on to.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Chrissy.
See ya.
I know, right?
What weather?
There's no weather in here.
It's not snowing in here.
Okay, so the next item on our list is the tax credit allocation, Windham Windsor Housing Trust, Alice Holway Drive.
So in your packet, this letter is addressed to me as town manager. It is a tax credit allocation for the Alice Holway Drive. So this is, I've never seen this before since I've been here, but so basically I'm going to review this with the lister's office. There's an evaluation checklist, but if I don't do anything with this, it'll still move forward.
Okay. So this is just an opportunity to.
This is a courtesy, and I'm letting this board know that I have received this document.
Okay.
And we did do something similar to this for Putney Landing.
Okay.
And I believe for Noise House, and Laura Plants probably.
Probably whenever.
Exactly,
tax
it's
credits
sort of,
in.
it's just a.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just an FYI?
Yeah, and it's a Vermont Housing Finance Agency document, so however this works, it just looks like there's a tax allocation credit.
Okay.
So.
But as the notice reads, it's a reasonable opportunity to comment.
Right, right.
Okay. So is there any discussion among the board on this? Are there any public comments online? Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, because I live at Putney Landing, I can clarify the role of the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. Putney Landing is actually owned by Putney Landing LP Limited Partnership, not by Windham and Windsor Housing Trust. It is a partnership of Windham and Windsor Housing Trust and the Vermont Housing Finance Agency. I believe this is common in their development, so that would explain the presence of VHFA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth? You're muted.
Yeah, I got it. I'm sorry. I just wanted to understand how these work. And we're talking about not Putney Landing, but the proposed project. And are tax credits given to other local developers who are trying to provide alternative housing solutions in Putney? Just as an example.
Do you have an answer to that?
I have an anecdotal, an unresearched answer, but there are many qualifications to allow, and I think Mr. Fairman's point is partly related to this. the ability of a group like the VHFA and the Windham Windsor Housing Trust to have this applied, it requires many different criteria are met. So I think that my opinion would be that any developer who wanted to build something in Putney who met all of those criteria in order to have this allocated should be eligible.
Was that what you're referring to, Karen, the checklist you're talking about?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
maybe you could make that public or
Yeah, I'm sure it's a public document through,
you know,
yeah.
It's in the packet.
Okay, so that might help answer that question.
Right.
And are there only certain amounts of credits allocated per town, per, you know, like, I'm really hoping that we are working towards encouraging diversity in affordable housing and not just giving everything to the one organization that's already very prevalent here.
What does VHFA stand for?
Vermont Housing Finance Agency.
Okay, so this is a state agency, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So your question is valid, but I think it needs to be directed towards the state. Karen?
The VHFA, you could look on their website and
Probably find
query with them directly as to the eligibility of others. They would be best equipped to answer that question for you.
Okay.
Okay, so Vanessa, you have your hand up? Vanessa, if you're talking.
Sorry, yeah, no, I was having trouble unmuting.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. So are you saying that this is a state tax issue and therefore it doesn't affect the finances of Putney town, and that it's just kind of a letter, something that they're asking for, or is this having to do with paying less taxes to Putney?
Yes, it has to do with paying less taxes to Putney. It's based on the way these systems work when they are affordable housing. For example, and the listers could probably answer this question more accurately, but essentially the appraised value of property that goes through all of these criteria, that fits all these criteria, is allocated an appraisal based on its affordability, and therefore the amount of tax that we are paid for it is less than it would be if it was at fair market value. But it is not something that we ultimately, I mean, this is, again, this is a letter for us to comment on, but once this is constructed and then we don't have control over that. It's a system, it's a
Kind of
system
like a
that
nonprofit, like applying for nonprofit status. It's not, we don't determine at a
Exactly.
town level whether an organization's a nonprofit.
And we don't, with some of them, if it's statutory, and with affordable housing it is, we don't then determine, I mean, as you know, there are certain groups who have to request tax exemption periodically. There are others who do not.
Right.
So this is one in which once that happens, it's statutorily governed that this is the percentage of the appraised value that will be allocated, and therefore that's how much they will pay.
Okay, I'm sorry, the whole screen and what you were saying froze up at a kind of pivotal point. So I'm just gonna clarifying, are you saying that this isn't something that as a town we have any control over anyway? You're just being informed of the situation?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have Deborah's hand up, is still up. Deborah, do you have a comment? No? Okay. Can you take her hand down from there? Karen, are you able to take your hand down? I'm sorry. You've got the mouse.
I don't know if I can.
Oh, not
Looks like she did
Elizabeth.
it.
Oh, well, okay. Elizabeth, did you have a comment? I think we're good.
Okay.
I do, I'm sorry, I'm having a new tool today. I just was looking it up. So it's a 5-year credit, which is based on the taxpayer's eligible cash contribution and may be claimed each year for 5 years against its Vermont individual income tax, corporate income tax, franchise tax, or insurance premium. I was asking friends of mine who are developing affordable workforce housing in Telluride, and they were saying that this is a very lucrative form of, it's like an investment because it offsets taxes due from more, lucrative investments. And just to make it clear, the people involved in building these large projects are making money. Just the word nonprofit doesn't mean that they're not, making some money. And this is, if we had more, maybe some kind of coaching on how alternative developers could work towards accessing funds, we may be in a great position to diversify our housing options to support both our workforce, our senior, or all three are seniors and are working on families. We do need diversity, and I really hope that maybe there is some opportunity, and I'm happy to look for grants to teach more people. We've had meetings with John Dunbar from Bellows Falls. He and his brother have been successful in producing some affordable housing. And I would like to help Richard Burkfield, who's spoken very, very clearly that his barn and the land behind his house is a burden to him, and was used in a housing study that Kent Bannister sent to me. And that housing study, I feel, could go and be revived and looked at as part of the Sidewalk study and the development of more housing, especially since there was so much work put into it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there is a lot of information out there on how to utilize funding on an individual basis, and I don't have that information right in front of me, but I do know that I have it in my email somewhere, so I can give that to Karen and maybe we can put it on our website. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, two brief comments. One is the previous speaker alluded to Telluride, which is in Colorado. I observe that we actually are in Vermont, where we are governed by the laws of the state of Vermont. Now, as to the other point of diversity and affordable housing in Putney, nothing prevents any other affordable housing developer from making a proposal to develop affordable housing or any other kind of housing in Putney. That they have not chosen to do so is not Windham and Windsor Housing Trust's fault. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so
I think it's worth highlighting again, the VHFA is a great resource for information about this stuff.
Yep.
It's way out of our realm of expertise.
Yeah, and I'll say again that I know that there is a lot of stuff for individuals, especially right now. So it's just a matter of disseminating that information. Is there any other discussion among the select board on this issue? All right, then let's move on to the tree warden candidate, John Grant, for review, discussion, and appointment. Is he here?
He is, we should thank him.
Yeah.
Oh, John, I'm so sorry.
And just in the future, he probably should have been under boards, committees, and commissions,
Yeah.
so.
Well,
John.
no, because this is like, state statute type. It's not really a board or commission.
Okay.
It is an appointment.
Yeah.
It's new business. It's something we're supposed to have yearly.
That's fair. I
Yeah.
probably should have noticed and tried to move it up.
Well, anyways, let's not make him hold on longer. We have a discussion.
We're going to talk about how long we've made you wait. So
So in your packet are 2 emails from John.
Yeah.
One dated on December 21st, expressing his interest in his experience. And then on February 7th, he did send me an email stating that he is interested in the tree warden position. So
I'd like to put a motion on the table to approve John Grant for the position of tree warden for the town of Putney.
Second.
Second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the appointment of John Grant for the position of tree warden for the town of Putney. Is there discussion among the board?
you might want to have him speak.
Do you want to speak to the position before we volunteer you?
I don't know much about Zoom. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, yep, I'm excited. I've been working with trees for a long time, and I'm a retired arborist, so I've got a lot to think about, and I look forward to working with whomever to, find out where you're at and where we can go, if anywhere.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion among the board?
The only comment I would make is it's clear from the letters that John submitted that he is very well qualified and interested and has significant expertise to offer us.
Yes,
That's great.
thank you, John.
That's really great. Is there any public comment online about the tree warden position? There's no public in the room. All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you, John.
Thank you much.
Thanks, John.
Karen, I'll assume you'll follow back up with me.
I will definitely do that, John.
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, so the next thing on our list is the Development Review Board amended, restated resolution review, comments, and approval. So Karen, do you want to explain why this came about?
Yes, so this came about because someone came into the office and was looking for information. So at one point in 2008, the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Adjustment were one group. At that time, the Selectboard split them up, and the DRB was created with 9 members. So just last year, this board reduced that number to 5. So in between, there was no record that was found that it went from 9 to 7 to 5. So Deborah Lazar was in the office, she had a packet, and she's like, what happened between 9 and 5? Where's the documentation? So I went through and I found the minutes in 2014 where the board discussed and they decreased the board to 5 members. I don't know if anyone read the comments today, but there was a piece in the article regarding the Development Review Board and not having information, and there was a question about legality of their meetings and whether or not they had quorums.
The DRBs.
The DRB.
Yeah.
Our DRB.
Our Putney Development Review Board. So I did find that, I sent it over to Larry. Larry restated, he amended and restated with 9, 7, and 5. I also reached out to VLCT and I got a response from Kale Romanoff, and if you want I can read it, it's pretty short.
Sure.
So, good morning, Karen. I do not think another resolution is necessary nor prudent here. For the creation of a better historical record, I would generally advise you to have a resolution documenting the membership change and its parameters, but minutes clearly outlining the change will suffice well. The fact that you overlooked the minutes is a good example of why we recommend a resolution. But the minutes are legally effective. Without a new resolution in 2014, those minutes reflecting the change merely amended the 2008 resolution. So your 2021 resolution technically wasn't necessary, but it will supersede both 2014, 2008. So any additional clarity in the new 2021 resolution is now effective. No need for a new one though.
Okay.
So Larry has put this forth. I will let the board know that we struggle here trying to recreate history because everybody has done it differently. Not that it's wrong, but it is very difficult. And when town hall is put on a spot and the Secretary of the State gets involved, then
It's time.
yeah. And, you know, it takes us a long time to dig through the records, and it takes away from other things that we should probably be focusing on. So I want to put this to bed with this resolution, and I recommend that Select Board.
I'll make a motion
consider.
to approve the Town of Putney Select Board resolution to reconfigure the Development Review Board, amended and restated as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Town of Putney Select Board resolution to reconfigure the Development Review Board, amended and restated. Is there further discussion on the board? I'll just reiterate what Karen said, and as an employee of a town where a lot of my work is governed by statutes, I have spent many hours going through town reports trying to find the warning that has the agenda article that proves that we are allowed to tax business personal property. So I think that going forward with these resolutions, it's kind of a shortcut to that process, and so that and like Karen said, this is not a legal document. This is basically a document detailing what our ideas were at the time that we voted on them. And the statute clearly does state that by vote of Select Board, we can change the DRB at any time. So, is there any other discussion among the board?
I just want to be clear, this is a legal document.
Yes, but it's not.
If we approve it and sign it.
Right, but it's not, in the absence of it, it's not.
It doesn't change the legality of what we did.
Right,
Yes.
that's what I meant.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. So, is there any other discussion among the board? No. Is there any public comment online? All right, hearing none.
May I just ask a question?
Yes.
So, is Deborah still with us? No.
No, she's gone.
Elizabeth Warner, does this satisfy your question?
I'm not sure if it fully satisfies the question because it seems like it was just done in a way that doesn't reflect real clarity and transparency. And I know you're trying so hard, Karen, to find things, and it was before your tenure, and I'm just hopeful going forward that these types of things can be more clear. And I even wondered if maybe the Select Board might consider us going as an on-the-record town to avoid confusion in the future.
For DRB purposes?
Yeah.
I think we're clarifying things like this will probably help, but I don't think we're quite there yet. But thank you for the suggestion.
I would also say that these were steps that were taken in legally warned open meeting select board meetings previously, and were documented, and the minutes were there to prove it. As far as transparency is concerned, yeah, sometimes it's hard to find those documents, and this will help with that. But any assertion that there was an intent to not have it be transparent, or that it wasn't a transparent process, I think reflects more sort of the time and where we were in the moment, as opposed to the reality of what we're trying to do today. And I just think that's really important. We don't do things. We try not to do anything without it being transparent, and we adhere very effectively to open meeting law with the Select Board, And so questioning of that, I think, is, it always should be questioned, but we try very hard with lots of counsel from outside to do things the right way.
That is correct.
I have seen improvement. Especially after the training that Karen helped bring in, which was great, and I'm looking forward to more of that.
Okay, thank you. Vanessa?
So just a really quick comment, which can maybe help clarify a little and bridge between what Elizabeth was saying and what Josh was saying, is one of the complicating factors is that your last resolution creating a 5-person DRB board specifically says from nine people to 5 people. And so I think that part of that written, recorded contradiction is been part of what's made this kind of problematic and confusing for folks, because there is, a brief mention in minutes from, I think it was 2014, that says we're creating a 7-person board, but the resolution itself, and so everybody who has served on the DRB and has joined the DRB since 2014 would have been under the impression that it was a 9-person board according to your own written resolution, more recent resolution saying we're going from 9-person to 5 people. So it's not just that there's information missing, it's that there is contradictory information on the record. So that's, I just clarifying the unclarity.
Okay, thank you. If I don't have our old resolution in front of us, so if that's what it says, then that was a mistake. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I would commend what Selectman Laughlin said in this regard, whereby he demonstrated what depth of experience and wisdom he is taking with him. Now, as far as there being some lack of clarity among legal documents, this is one of the reasons we have lawyers, and it's also one of the reasons that we have Supreme Courts, who ultimately have to work out what really happened. So I would suggest that there's no fault whatsoever on the part of any select person or select persons who now serve or who have ever served on the Town of Putney Select Board. All of you are volunteers. You are paid a pittance to do a great deal of work. And I know I once made the mistake when I served on a suburban Montreal school board of calculating my hourly rate. Please don't do this. You will need psychotherapy for depression. So, really what you're talking about here is of no particular consequence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion among the board? All right. Are there any further comments online? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right.
Don't lose this, Jim.
Right?
I'm gonna frame it.
Okay, so the next piece is Select Board Unfinished Business, the ARPA amended restated resolution review, comments and approval. So this.
Do you want to speak on that?
No. So this is basically.
This is just what we did we did this at the last meeting. We discussed with the ARPA committee meeting. There was unanimous agreement that it was a reasonable thing to do, is to drop out that section that talked about all the specifics of what the ARPA committee was going to do.
Okay. So, and it shows up in this resolution for the purpose of saying that we're going to eradicate it.
That's right.
Okay,
So
that's
we
fine.
have a
If that-
record of
That's,
every step.
that makes sense, okay.
So do you want a motion on the table for
Yes,
that?
please.
And how exactly would that read? Because the,
Which part? The motion? I guess it would be,
to adopt, but
Amended
this
and
still
restated.
contains,
I know, but it's
Amended and
because
restated.
as Karen pointed out, we want to have a record of what went on before. So it's basically saying we're eradicating this part.
okay.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the American Rescue Plan Act Advisory Committee resolution as amended and restated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the American Rescue Plan Act Advisory Committee resolution as amended and restated. Discussion on the board?
I'm sorry if I, so this is what we eliminated,
Yes.
but it doesn't say that we're eliminating.
It says to eradicate the duties as listed, and then it goes down. Is
Okay,
that-
sorry. Yeah, okay.
If it's not clear, we should change the language.
It doesn't appear clear, but it,
Do you want to put something more clear in there?
no.
Okay.
I can make the change because your signatures on her, they're on a separate page.
I mean,
What
it was
you
clear,
have
it was clear
read.
to me, but that doesn't, I mean, if it's not clear to other people, then if there's a better way to say it. I mean, it does seem a little odd that we're leaving it in here, but the reason is so that we know that we did that.
But, yeah,
Because
I
otherwise-
find that confusing. but-
Somebody's gonna have to go back to the old one.
Right.
And say,
To
what did we
know what it
eliminate?
is.
Right, what
Yeah.
did we eliminate?
Right. Right.
That makes sense.
But they're two separate resolutions, which we should have in documentation. Maybe it's just the reading. I find it confusing to have it printed in here, but I certainly won't vote against it for that
Larry,
reason.
I thought we were taking it out. I don't
yeah,
know
I
when it
would
got
take-
back in again.
I
Well,
would
it's in here.
take it out.
Did Larry vet this?
No.
Okay. So I don't care either way, but I think the reason that Karen put it in there is because she
Because
wants
10
to.
years from now, somebody's
somebody's-
gonna say.
What did
not
you
10
take
years.
out,
No.
right?
Yeah.
What's the difference between this one and this one?
Well,
I mean,
maybe it doesn't
They have to
matter.
go look.
And for that person, exactly, and, you know, when we sign this,
Yep.
they should both go in the same file, so all they have to do is turn one more page.
Right.
I'm not trying to give you a hard time at all, Karen.
So here's the thing too, this is gonna be done in 2026. So it may
So
not
it's
make
gonna
a
go away,
difference.
right?
Or
Wishful
sooner,
thinking.
who knows?
Well, it's gonna go away one way or the other, right?
Just one suggestion.
But see, your point, Josh, is that I would have to take the old one and make sure it was with the new one, so you could reference, you know. but-
Which I think should happen.
I mean, the question, I
I
mean,
think that's a more accurate record of what happened.
Karen
rather-
has her own way of doing things, another town manager comes in 10 years from now, they have a different way of
Right.
doing things. This file gets put in the basement, I mean, things happen. I can see it both ways, I'm not,
Yeah, I sort of get too. To me, this is confusing that we would have it in here, but.
So do
but
you
again,
want me
I
to
won't
just
vote.
take out all the tasks? Are you okay with the language, whereas the Putney Select Board desires to amend and restate the resolution of October 19th, 2022?
To eradicate the duties and functions of the ARP committee as listed in the prior version. And if somebody wants to know, they go to the
What
prior
did you say?
version.
I think that's clear. I think that's a
Okay.
good idea.
all right.
Does that work for you,
Does that work
Karen?
for you, Karen?
It works for me.
Okay,
And
so,
we'll see in 4 years if somebody needs it. So I'm like,
Yeah, the only suggestion I had is add the word below after listed.
well, we're taking them out, so we
we're
don't have
taking
You're
them
gonna
out,
take them all
Charlie.
out.
so we don't need a below anymore.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're gonna
Is that-
save on paper.
Okay,
As listed in the prior version.
As listed in the prior version.
Yes.
Yeah,
and if, maybe put the date of the prior version.
Good idea.
whatever that is.
It would have been October 19th, 2022.
Okay, so,
Oh, yes, it's already there.
It's there.
oh, it is there.
You
Okay.
missed that important
Sorry,
piece.
I saw eradicated and that's all I.
I know.
Okay, is there other discussion on the board? Public comment online, Vanessa?
While we're on ARPA and clarifying, there was a request from the ARPA committee. I thought Jeanette was going to be here tonight to pass it on, but comments at the last select board meeting about conflicts of interest for, in particular, the nonprofit directors that are on the ARPA board, needing clarification about whether we will be penalized or
Disqualified.
banned from receiving or applying for ARPA funds if the process. Well, I'll leave it at that. So just in order to be able to function, members need to know how the select board sees their roles in terms of the ARPA member roles in terms of conflicts of interests and whether that negates their ability to participate in funding.
So I'm the one who made comments that from my perspective, I apologize if I wasn't clear. My intent was not to assert that anybody would be, if we decide to go through an application process in order to garner funds, it definitely would not prevent anybody who sits on that from applying for that. I do believe that in the interest of avoiding an actual conflict of interest, anybody who was then voting within the committee to approve a specific allocation for their own organization should recuse themselves from that vote and perhaps from the discussion. So again, I apologize for confusion. I just wanted to make it clear that if there are people, and I wasn't trying to target anybody in saying this, but if there are people on the committee who are promoting an entity of their own, which is fine, but they, or not promoting, that might be the wrong word, but advocating for there to be a process that involves. There's an inherent conflict of interest in that because they are talking at a committee level about an organization that they have a vested interest in. And I'm not accusing anybody of exercising a conflict of interest, but identifying a conflict of interest and recusing oneself when there's an actual vote related to it are very important. So that's all I was trying to make clear, is if you are part of an organization that potentially could have a conflict of interest by the nature of the definition of conflict of interest, I would advise people to recuse themselves from those discussions and definitely from the vote.
Karen?
So Vanessa, I did email Katie Buckley about the conflict and whether or not, a nonprofit, would be penalized or disqualified. She has not gotten back to me.
Okay.
It's been a week. I know she's very busy. I will try to follow up with her, by the end of the week. But yeah, hopefully she'll get back to us before our next meeting.
Josh?
Terrific. Thank you for doing that and for following up. And just to kind of reiterate, I think that what Josh has just clarified, and my understanding as well, is that we're talking about just the basic standard policies of conflicts of interest. That you, as a member of the board, you announce any potential conflicts from the get-go, and when it comes to voting within anything that affects that conflict, you refrain from voting. The confusion and the fear, I think, was that that the select board, or that, you know, that there was some kind of further, more rigorous standard than a usual conflict of interest, and that nonprofit directors would be would have to refrain from applying for funding or receiving funding at all. But I think what Josh has just clarified makes sense to me, and unless we hear something differently, I appreciate you clarifying. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to further clarify that my understanding of what we were saying in the ARPA committee is that they would not, nonprofit directors or whatever will not be disqualified for applying for
Or penalized.
for applying for funds that they otherwise would be eligible to apply for. So if we decide that no nonprofits are going to get any money, then no nonprofits are going to get any money. But if we decide that nonprofits are eligible, then the nonprofit directors who are sitting on the ARPA committee will not be penalized as
because they're on the they're on the committee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and that's you know, that's standard procedure for conflict of interest. That's great, and you know, it's simply refraining from voting for yourself. But that's, you know, that's just standard procedure. Right. So
yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairman.
Madam Chair, first of all, I should mention that refraining from voting for yourself is not standard procedure. A long time ago, a person said to me, if you don't vote for yourself, why should anyone else?
Right.
Now, regarding the matter of conflicts of interest, you all are governed by Vermont state law. I cannot give you legal advice, but I can tell you, consult Vermont statute, which is quite explicit on the subject of potential conflicts of interest among members of municipal boards, commissions, and committees. And is very cognizant that in a small town state such as Vermont, it is essentially impossible for us to avoid having overlapping interests. And it deals with this very effectively. So that what I would suggest is, instead of conjecture, take a look at the statute. It will tell you exactly what you can and can't do and how and why. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So all towns are required to adopt a conflict of interest policy, and we do have one in Putney. So if there's questions among the ARPA committee about how that works, just review that document. As far as penalizing members of the ARPA committee because they are serving on the ARPA committee, that's not our intent at all. So again, as long as they're following the conflict of interest policy, and you know, there will always be conflicts of interest in any board like this, especially in a small town, and you identify it. You recuse yourself. To me, that means recusing yourself from the actual discussion, as well as abstaining from the vote. But basically, it's use your best judgment, and if enough other committee members feel like you have a conflict of interest, they're also obligated to point that out to you. So, use your best judgment.
One tiny last point of clarification on that. I agree with what Mr. Fairman said about if you're not going to vote for yourself, nobody else should. In a broader vote, I would absolutely, if we were to go through an application process in which committee members were deciding who was going to be part of a broader voting process, they should recuse themselves within the committee setting because it's undue influence. Would they then, in a larger setting, I would certainly encourage them to vote for whoever they want to,
Right.
but not in the setting of a committee.
Okay. Is there further discussion among the board about the amended and restated ARPA resolution? Any comments online? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so Karen, we still have that on a separate page, so we can still just sign it?
In your
Where it went?
folder, where it was.
Okay. All right, so the next piece is town meeting preparation. Section of work.
So Meg Mott and Core Trowbridge are here.
Oh, okay.
So, Josh, you had asked to do the town meeting prep.
Yeah,
Just
and I wasn't, I had said, and Karen asked me about this, that we typically have, and I may have misstated as a public informational meeting. I don't mean it under that topic. We have done that the last few years for very specific reasons related to COVID.
Right.
But to the best of my recollection, we have always had sort of a last minute opportunity if people have questions about articles, et cetera. And so this is just sort of a placekeeper for that in my mind, that if there, it's also an opportunity if any of us, I mean, I think we for example, could discuss right now how we and the moderator
Right.
want to allocate the moving of articles. You know, historically, what we have often done is just to essentially, when we're sitting at the table, do a round robin of, okay, Charlie's going to do Article 1, I'll do Article 2, Eileen 3, 4, 5, and just do that. I'm not invested in it. Meg may have an opinion about how she would like us to do that, and I think, in fact, it's probably her purview to make that decision for us. And then if Meg would like to talk about, it's essentially just so that we have an opportunity, and you know, maybe we don't need this, but that we have an opportunity to talk about specific steps of how things might
Like
happen.
a dress rehearsal.
Exactly, and you know, we've all had a long meeting, and I don't need to draw it out, but I'm interested in Meg and perhaps Core's opinion on whether there's anything you feel we need to be thinking about in this moment and getting ready for town meeting.
Okay, so Meg, do you have a few minutes to chat?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here and just have a few moments to talk about what will happen, because what a great event. We're actually going to do Robert's Rules and not have a public information meeting. It can be helpful for me to know which member of the select board is going to move a specific article. We didn't do that with the public information meetings. Usually it seemed like nobody wanted to really say, oh, I'm going to take such and such an article. So we can be flexible, but it can have a certain efficiency. There are just a couple little corrections that will need to be made. So Article 3, it says to see if the town will accept the report of the last town meeting. It wasn't a town meeting, it was a public information meeting. So, you know, one of those things where if we know ahead of time, then, and I've talked to my parliamentarian chairman about this, that I'll be the article, we'll get a motion, and then if there could be a correction for Article 3, that would be helpful. I don't see any other actual items on the warning that I feel need an adjustment or something of that sort. Maybe next year, if I'm voted in as town moderator again, I would appreciate before the warning goes out, just to have a chance to sit down with the select board. So that could, you know, I'd love to be on your agenda for early in January or end of December.
It's been a while since we've done town meetings, so I think we're a bit rusty.
Yeah. So basically that's, I mean, I'm happy to get any advice from you ahead of time, like if somebody wants to make sure that I pick on such and such a select board member for a specific article, and then we'll deal with that correction of Article 3.
Okay, so in the past, we've just basically pick an order, or?
Usually what we did is when we're sitting at the table in the front of town meeting, we just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, or
Okay.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And then we can give Meg, it'll be in that moment unless we want to pick those right now, but that might be more confusing.
We don't have it in front
But
of us, so
then we can hand Meg something. The other thing I want to just make clear, as to Meg's point, just because you're moving an article doesn't mean that's necessarily you would be the select person who was to speak to it. So the moving it is just the formality of getting a motion on the table and then the necessity of Meg to hear a second for that in order to open it for discussion. So just in the interest of efficiency, if we know how that's working and we can just move through it, so,
And seconds usually come from the floor, right?
Typically,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll always say, I'll look at the select board and say, do we have a motion for article, after I read it out loud, do we have a motion for whatever the article is?
Okay.
So,
And
it's a dance, we're gonna do a dance again, finally.
Meg, I feel like, and I don't remember whether this was in your tenure or previous, but I feel like there was some confusion in the past of if you read it and then a select board member is going to move it, do they need to reread it? They don't, right? It's just, you move it and then ask for it to be, or you read it and then a select board member moves it and then it's seconded by a member of the audience.
Right, and then I say, and now we will discuss, and I read it again.
Correct.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think we do that in the moment when we're there. And then I think also, one of the reasons we've had public or, more informational meetings at a meeting previous to town meeting is when there are articles that are more confusing or more in-depth.
Yeah.
We don't have much of that this year. There will always be questions we can't anticipate, but when we were talking about the bond for the fire truck, for example, it was very important to have a meeting to introduce that to the people who were going to be voting before, et cetera.
Okay.
So,
Cool, we'll try to keep that in mind for next year.
So we do have guests, and
Okay.
Meg has the order.
Okay.
So Michael Maricki, Nader, Wendy. John Sessions too would like to speak,
Okay. Okay, good.
from, as the new principal.
And those all happen before we
Who's
open the meeting, really?
Wendy?
Wendy
Harrison?
Yes, Wendy
okay.
Harrison, yeah. And we have the community service award that needs to be
Okay.
presented.
And do we do that?
One of you will do that. I was thinking Josh.
unless
Because it's your
somebody,
last.
unless there's a reason for somebody else. If somebody has a particular personal connection to it, and in the context of, I can think of somebody who might be very happy to do that, so we can have that conversation
Okay, I
later.
just
But
nominated you.
that's fine too. I'm happy to do it, or I can think of somebody else who might be quite pleased to do it, so
Okay.
I can talk to you about that
Yeah.
afterwards.
Okay.
And I think, there's a seating arrangement this year, only because there's 5 of you now. So it's Meg, Kim Monroe will be on the stage, she'll be doing the minutes.
Didn't we used to have the school board up there too?
Yeah, but
Not at
school
the same
board.
time.
No, it wasn't up there.
Yeah, but they won't be there. It's just gonna
Right,
be
no, I
out of
thought
town.
if there was like more space, but.
Right, no, we
Okay.
used to switch.
Okay.
And then it kind of goes a little, because I need to be sitting next to you,
Yeah.
and then you need to be sitting off to her side somehow.
Okay.
Or we could flank you, either way.
Yeah.
And then we'll have, but all of us will be up there. So there'll be 7 of us,
And everybody will have a microphone up there.
7, 8 of us. Well, no, remember there was 1 microphone for 2 people.
Was there last?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 years ago, yeah, I remember I had to keep moving it. between me and Chip, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
No, that's right.
No, it was between you and I, actually, because that was the last time we had it in person, so.
All right.
So don't get nervous up there. Don't anybody get like cold feet. And be prepared, because it could be a long day. We did talk to the school. John Johnson and I met with John Sessions and Steve. They are gonna do lunch.
Okay.
So there'll be a donation. There will be tables, for other folks. The town is gonna have a table for, all kinds of different things.
Okay.
And is Steve Voorhees doing the sound as he usually does?
Yes, and they have a new music teacher too, so they're gonna bring him on board too,
Okay.
just in case, in
For
the
sound.
future.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've got that all arranged. The room will be set up a little differently, because normally the voting booths were on the far wall, but because people are sitting in the middle and the voters
It's
have,
distracting.
it was very distracting, so it's gonna be set up a little bit differently. The flow seems like it'll work better, so.
And then
Core is here because there is a question, and I want to correct, I used a word and it's probably incorrect, and I don't want to have people. So Core is here because BCTV will be there. I had mentioned hybrid, but that is not going to be the case.
Okay.
Because the town clerk cannot validate that people are voters if they're doing a meeting like this.
Yeah.
So Core, the question to you is, can there be a non-interactive, live streaming, so people can watch town meeting but not participate?
The answer is yes, and we're doing this for one other town. We can live stream to YouTube, and it's just really internet dependent. And I think that the internet from that event that we did in the gym the other night in December is adequate.
Okay.
So we can live stream out to YouTube and get you a link to distribute in advance.
All right.
Okay.
Well, if we do that, though, I want to make it really, really clear that this is not a hybrid, because I don't want people thinking that they're going to be able to tune into that and then realize that they actually have to be in person to vote. So that's my only concern.
Is it, I just didn't notice, is it public? You said you used the word hybrid. Is that published or has that been?
No, it is not.
Okay, so yeah, no, I totally agree with you in making that clear now.
Yeah.
Right.
But also, I think, Meg, that will be incumbent upon you to clarify that, maybe even before our guest speakers speak, so that if somebody suddenly realizes that, they can hop in their car if they want to.
Yeah.
Does that mean that I understand that people can't vote, but can people ask a question?
No.
No.
Because you're when you get into town meeting, they say, are you a resident of the town? Are you a voter?
Right.
And you go into the special section, and only residents, unless the body says allows a guest to speak from out of town, then they can speak. Otherwise, it's residents only that are allowed to speak and vote at town meeting.
And since we don't have any way of verifying that.
Okay, I understood that for voting, I didn't get that for speaking. So.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
But it brings up the question, because if Howard Fairman is our parliamentarian, how does that work?
Well, Howard is, what do you mean? He's probably going to be there in person.
No, he is not going to be there in person.
So Mr. Fairman has his hand up. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, I wasn't anticipating addressing this question, so I think I'll set it aside for now. I want to back up to a couple of things that were said earlier, if I may.
Okay.
It is widely believed in Vermont that if voters can pass over a town meeting article by refusing a second. This is not in fact true. The statute says that where it is silent, Robert's Rules of Order govern the meeting. And the relevant Robert's rule is, this is a section 4, paragraph 11, a motion made by direction of a board or duly appointed committee of the assembly requires no second from the floor. In other words, when a member of a select board moves an article, no second is required. It goes immediately to debate, and also under Robert's rules, the first thing that happens is the moderator states the question, which means the moderator reads the article verbatim, and then when it comes to voting, before the article is voted upon, the moderator reads the article verbatim again, if and as amended. This is simply the way, and this way everyone always knows what's going on, or at least could know what's going on. Sometimes I'm not sure I do. Now, another thing that came up, this is an excerpt from a discussion Meg and I had earlier today. It seems that VLCT is raising the question of, do town meeting articles say that something will be heard, or do they say something will be acted on? Well, once again, we are governed by statute, which says that town meeting is, I quote, for the election of officers and the transaction of other business. Now, when a statute doesn't define a term, courts look at a dictionary, and a dictionary says that a transaction means to be doing business, which is what we're talking about here, or an interaction between people. Now these certainly include hear and act on. So what's really happening is transaction of other business, which means everything on the warning except for election of officers. Now, the final point is, I've been involved in some discussions with various folks about this whole question, and I can say that I am a computer expert. There is no way online to verify that people are in fact, people who are participating online are in fact Putney residents. Mm-hmm. So, and Madam Chair is correct that only Putney residents may participate in the discussion unless they receive permission from the meeting, which we commonly do when some group would like to speak to us about whatever. But really, the meeting, the voting at the meeting has to be in person, and participation in the meeting, it seems, has to be in person as well, because since only residents can participate, there's no way of knowing online who's a resident and who could be literally anywhere on earth, as one of our participants this evening is in some place where it is 84 degrees this evening, and I suggest that none of us allow her any sympathy whatsoever as we are facing a snowstorm beginning in a few minutes, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Vanessa.
Just a really quick comment, because I think I'm probably not alone in thinking that we were still under kind of the COVID rules of meetings needing to have a remote option.
So they don't, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it was just to really urge you guys to not wait until the day of to announce that people can't participate remotely. Mm-hmm. And so just in by whatever means you can, just to get the word out that people need to show up in person, it would just be, that would be great.
Okay, yeah, I think there is some confusion as to the extended emergency rules that the governor signed a month ago. Those were extending rules that we could use if we wanted to. We're not mandated to do them, so that's good to know that people are feeling like. And I've seen some op-eds in letters to the editor that are also illustrate that confusion. So that's good to
Yeah.
know. As far and I don't know how we'll post it out.
Thank you for clarifying that, but yeah, the point is that people are very confused, and there may be a whole lot of folks who have it on the schedule but are not planning on being there in person. And as somebody mentioned earlier, if you are putting up a YouTube link, that could potentially really confuse things as well, and kind of reinforce the idea that people think that they can participate and even vote remotely. So just as much as you can, get some notices out. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way, Core, on the YouTube when we project it? What if I'm watching the YouTube? Is there a way to have that information on that YouTube? So the
It
people
can be
see
in the description. Yes, it can be underneath the video.
Right, just like you can whatever the word.
Karen could give me some language to just dump into that description.
Yeah.
So you could say whatever you want there. And we would assume you would want any kind of chat function turned off.
Yes.
Because unless you want to monitor it.
Nope.
No.
Not at all. Yeah, I don't want to give anybody any kind of impression that any of their comments or anything that they might do online is going to get entered into the record, or that anybody's going to see it. So if as long as we can make it very, 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 very clear that the only way to participate in town meeting is to be at town meeting in person, I'm fine with live streaming it.
So some notifications, if we can get out
We
actual
will.
posted notification,
Tomorrow we can
put it
do
on the
something.
website.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing I noticed on my way in is that the signboard still reads that taxes are due on the 17th. So maybe we could just change that and add, say,
In
town
person,
meeting
town meeting
will only be in
Yeah.
person or something.
Right, and as soon as people log in, this stream is only
not
for viewing.
interactive.
It is not interactive. If
Right.
some language there.
Advance notice is definitely important
Yeah.
though, because people may be expecting
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they're going to be at
Right.
home, and that's not the way it's going to work. I like the sandwich board idea. I always pay attention to the sandwich board out front. Mr. Fairman?
Oh, and Meg's got.
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
I can clarify this matter of this being discussed just now. I'm going to start with our Town of Putney Select Board. You are a legislative body by Vermont statute. And 5 of you have been duly elected by the legal voters of the Town of Putney. So when other people are participating in your meeting, only you have votes, and we all know who you are because we elected you. So there is no problem. On the other hand, Vermont Town Meeting also is a legislative body of which the members are the legal voters of the town who are present at the meeting. And that is where it becomes impossible to know who is who, because in most towns there are quite a few legal voters, probably more than anyone knows personally. So the way we know who is allowed to vote is we check them in with the checklist. And there really is no other way to do it. Now, but that's the difference. At a town meeting, the legal voters of the town are the legislators, while in a select board meeting, you are the 5 legislators, and everyone knows who you are. You can't make this happen at a town meeting when people are participating remotely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Meg, I skipped over you. Do you have your hand up still?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to say that I think it's, I'm going to, of course, say early on that this is a real town meeting and that it's not a public information meeting. So some of these habits we've developed over the pandemic aren't actually in operation. And but I'm planning on getting there at 9:30 in the morning just to sort of help set up. And the other piece that Karen already mentioned is I do rely on Howard for the parliamentary issues. Like he's reminding me that when the motion comes from the select board, we don't need a second. So he will not be at the meeting, and he'll be watching live stream. Is there gonna be a way he can communicate, maybe through cell phone anyway, something that Howard and I will need to work on, but.
Okay. Not off the top of my head, I don't know that it would be illegal for you and Mr. Fairman to confer via text or something like that. I wouldn't think it would, but just double check.
Yeah, okay. Great.
Mr. Fairman, I'm assuming that's okay with you, Mr. Fairman.
Indeed, Madam Chair. Certainly, there is no prohibition whatsoever on, should it be necessary, me communicating with the moderator during the meeting. But I want to remind you that a parliamentarian at a town meeting is merely an advisor to the moderator who is in charge of the meeting. Now, I also probably should mention that Meg and I updated and submitted, as usual, our town meeting guidelines, town meeting laws and rules of order, which they decided not to print in the town report, but our understanding is that they will be made available at the meeting. And this, in fact, is a step-by-step guide to how town meeting works, with the relevant statutes and laws and rules of order arranged under the steps of moving a motion, discussing a motion, amending a motion, and voting on a motion. Because what makes town meeting really confusing is Vermont statute, of course, outranks Robert's Rules of Order, but on the other hand, Robert's Rules of Order guide much of the meeting. So we have arranged everything so that you can simply read through in the order of the way things go and know exactly which. They are quoted verbatim, know exactly what can happen at any given point. So we are hoping that some copies of that will be printed and distributed at town meeting, because the intent is to make town meeting easy and fun. Thank you.
Is it possible to put this document up on the website before the meeting?
It already is.
Okay.
It's been there since we received it.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, if you're going to post about town meeting not being a hybrid, well,
I'm not using that word.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's going to be
in person only.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you could on that posting also say, you know, Town Hall also has available, you know, sort of rules of town meeting, but that might just confuse things.
Yeah. We'll make sure there's copies. It's already on the website. We'll pin it to the Facebook page.
Okay.
And we'll update our sign out front.
Okay.
Meg, you probably know this, but historically, Tom Ehrenberg has often been the resident parliamentarian. So he's, in Mr. Fairman's absence, he's quite a knowledgeable resource. And I don't know that he's going to be there, but he more often than not is. So.
Yeah, and I've used Tom quite a bit in the past, so I'll just, you know, if he's in the room, I might just say, hey, do you have a thought on this? But as Howard says, the meeting can overrule me, and so I follow the rules, I follow the will of the people. If I make a decision about parliamentary procedure and I'm overruled, then that's how we'll work it out.
Okay. Is there any other questions that we have of Meg, or any other town meeting preparation questions? All right, well then, moving on, we've got the Executive Office Financial Supplement.
Thank you, Meg.
Yeah,
thank you very much, everybody. Executive Office.
Around if he's a jolly good fellow?
Maybe later.
Thank you, Josh, for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next piece is the Executive Office Financial Supplement to the Town Report.
So in your packet is a copy that we've been working on since 2019. It basically outlines the town report in more detail. Lots of charts in here.
Beautiful charts.
Peg, you had asked a question about tax rates. You know, municipal tax rates compared to other towns. So that graph is in there. There's comparisons over a 3-year period. It just kind of gives you a visual of a lot of stuff from our town report. It also gives you, starting on page 16, town department reports and line item budgets. So we broke down the budget to departments, so you can see how much is being spent in any given department. This includes the library. It also has projections for like FY22 projects that were completed, what we're working on in 23, what our goals for 24 might be. This is a work in progress.
Yeah.
I don't think the town has ever had anything like this in the past. We find it, people sometimes are visual, you know, and looking at this, it really breaks down a lot of the information in the budget, which is hard to interpret sometimes. So I would love your opinions and feedback on this particular document. I will say too, creating this document was a check and balance for the town report.
Definitely.
So this should be done yearly. It will be done yearly as long as
Now
I'm
that you've got
here.
the foundation.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So,
Well, it's probably, I mean, check and balance for it, but it's probably also super helpful for you to
yeah,
sort of evaluate
right.
your understanding and
Yeah.
knowledge, et cetera.
And not only that, but for Kim Monroe, who has spent a lot of time on the town report.
Yeah.
She also does payroll and accounts payable. And for her to work with me on this, to put this together, she was able to see and connect everything.
Dots that wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah, not everything, but she's
Yeah.
getting to the point where she understands, you know, why certain things are the way they are.
Thank you, Kim.
So I just want to say thank you and a big shout out to her, because she has been great. And she just, like, I say, I have a project for you, Kim, and she just like takes it on. So
Nice.
it's been really good.
And tonight, she's doing our minutes for us,
Yes,
because
yeah.
in Cass's absence, she does
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's really great. Is there discussion on the select board on this?
You don't have to discuss it, you can just, if you got questions.
Where is this going?
This, I'm gonna have copies at town meeting.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it on the website, link it to the Facebook page, but, like I said, it's a work in progress, but I think it's a good base.
It definitely, and
Absolutely.
I like the way it's broken out, because especially with the projects and the goals and then the accomplishments, it really,
Yeah.
you can really move stuff forward, and see where we've been and see where you're going.
It actually gives me a visual, so I can plan ahead for capital improvements and stuff like that too.
I would also say,
So-
I would have to imagine coming on as new select board members, something
Yes.
like this, you know, this is sort of a primer and allows you to see it in a way that might promote being able to ask questions.
Correct.
So I think this should definitely go to
Whoever's.
anybody who's coming on.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Is there other discussion on that? I have 3 comments online. Elizabeth?
Yes, Karen had alluded in a few meetings prior that it was gonna be a bit of sticker shock for the tax increase, and we had a pretty good tax increase last year as well. From my calculations, I got just like 16.5% increase, and then there was also 10 cents education. I'm
What was
trying to add it together to
So
get a.
the local municipal increase is 0.0741. And then the estimated homestead educational tax is 1.8256, I think I said.
That's not the increase, that's the total.
That's the total.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's the.
No, I mean, that's not the increase from last year, that's the total tax of the homestead rate. Or is that, okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
So are you talking about the increase or?
No.
I'm really trying to identify the increase, like year over year, like if we could show sort of, I am visual too, a graph of what the increases are, and as we've been talking about increasing our tax base to try to level it off to be a flatter tax and less burdensome to the residents, we want to be really focusing a lot on bringing in and increasing our tax base, because I know people are struggling. Right. And you introduced the meeting with people are struggling to pay their taxes and may be in a position of tax auction. So how to wrap our brains around that and work towards leveling that off and even lowering it for permanent residents would be probably a good focus.
Yeah, that's yeah. So on page 5.
Oh, it's in this report. Yeah.
Yeah. On page.
I've got one in front of me. So
yeah. In the financial supplement, if you see the chart on the left, so those have been the tax increases over the years, and you can see they're definitely not stable. And that's something I'm gonna have to work on and figure out, how to. And I can explain, FY22 was because we created the Highway Capital Reserve to transfer the $145,000. So that was the bulk of that increase for 22. But back in fiscal year 13, there was a 10.3% increase as well. So I'm kind of projecting, does it happen every 10 years? What's going on here? So, but you're right, Elizabeth, it is something I have to look at and look at other policies, like a tax stabilization policy or a fund balance policy. Those are all things that I'll be looking at in the future. And, property tax revenue streams is something else. So there's a lot to it, and it takes a little time, but.
So we were 0.9023 for 22, and what are we for 23?
It's gonna be 0.097.
So that doesn't represent a 16%. I'm not sure where that first number you said, Elizabeth, came from.
it was coming from I had highlighted 2 sections, and so hold on, I'm flipping through the pages here. Highway fund budget, overall balance budget increase reflects increase of $70,207 to be raised by taxes, an increase of 6.9% overall.
What page?
So that was on page 35.
Oh, you're in the town report, or?
No.
Yeah, I have.
No,
I have the report. So I'm just trying to see,
No.
comparative to the 2022 report, what direction are we heading with this? Because one of the things a lot of people, especially in the older homes in the village, the cost of maintaining and heating on top of taxes and trying to keep, I live on Main Street and I try to do my best to have our property look nice and be welcoming to the town, but it's cost me over $500 a month just to heat this little house. And the costs are exorbitant. I'm really hoping that we can work towards allocation of funds that can help support flattening the taxes. So, and that's through increasing our tax basis.
So the on the supplement page, we have, on page 9, there's the projected tax rate with education.
Right.
And that's in this the financial supplement.
Yeah, like if we took all the numbers together and added them, what is the true increase? Like the full assessed, you know, because it's a lot. It keeps going up.
It is a lot, and,
So we have,
you know, the other thing too, and we talked about this when we were talking about the budget, you know, there's only so much we can control with increases in the budget.
we have it here, but it's,
You know, we do the best we can, but again, you know, property tax revenue streams is something else that we need to find, you know?
Well, let's work towards more opportunities for home ownership. And the idea that we've talked about of the food truck court at the entrance, you know, working collaboratively with the business owners at the southern entrance of town, so more businesses are generating tax dollars.
so we're talking about the financial supplement right now, and these are all great ideas, but it's been a long meeting, so.
Yeah, I know it's a long meeting. I have no
so
percentage of taxes
can I talk
going up,
this?
and I find it difficult to not get that number.
Yeah, so we're talking about this financial supplement document, and as far as the tax rate is concerned, it's covered by the assessment values versus what we vote at town meeting. So this is an estimate, and as far as getting taxes down, I totally agree, but there's a lot of different factors that go into these numbers, including the education tax rate, which we have no control over.
Including the grand list that hasn't grown.
Right. So, and then that
That's
is
the
a
biggest
factor.
thing.
That is a factor, and you know, the townwide reappraisal will even some of the CLA and COD issues out, so that things will be more equitable in the future. But this is where we're at right now.
I also, I mean, I've said this before in meetings, but, you know, I'm not aware of anything in my life that the price of it is going down. And the town is just as subject to that as all of us as individuals. And so, and I'm not arguing that we shouldn't try and keep our tax burden as low as possible, but in my time on the select board, I've never found a place where we can hugely change that. I mean, increasing our grand revenue, our grand list is definitely a good thing. But it's the nature of inflation in the world that the price of everything goes up. Can we minimize it? Yes. Do we try? Yes.
Yeah.
Can we make it none?
And we have limited resources as to where we can find alternative funds. The sad fact is that most of our municipal revenue comes from property tax. So, and there's not much we can do about that at this level.
And there's been, forever, there have been discussions about education funding.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a much bigger percentage of your taxes that you pay than the municipal. But it's just a reality that things are more expensive every year.
Yes. All right, there's 2 more comments online. Vanessa?
Yeah, just jumping back real quick to the in-person nature of town meeting, and coupled with, you know, something that I think has been aired a bit, which is the private schools could be doing a whole lot more. Getting a bus route going.
Okay.
Just a town meeting shuttle.
Oh, I see. All right, that's a good suggestion, but we're on the executive office financial supplement to the town report right now. But thank you for the suggestion. Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, first, concerning the, I couldn't memorize this name, Executive Office Financial Supplemental. Now that is impressive, and the document itself, I can tell, is very impressive, and I doubt that there may be none like it in the state of Vermont, so I'm requesting that the town manager leave a copy at the front office so I can pick it up when I'm passing by. Tax base. Everybody talks about tax base. Well, increasing the tax base is something that happens because of private decisions. Now, there's one thing we can do to influence those private decisions, and that has to do with our town plan, making sure that our town plan is as friendly as possible to people who would like to increase our tax base. And in that regard, there's active discussion going on now regarding Act 250 to our land use planning law to give a lot more preference to compact development within existing village centers. Now, in some parts of the world, that's called infill development. Putney Village is very unusual in this respect because it already has very compact development. Think of all the homes that are on what some people call a hammerhead lot. In other words, there's two homes on the street, and there's a driveway that goes in between them, and there's one or two or three houses up behind. So really, the town plan is the crux of increasing the tax base, because we need to be looking at not only what kind of town we want in terms of things like land use, but if we want the town to be to have a growing tax base, we have to look at it from the perspective, from not our perspective, but from the perspective of people who might wish to build here. How do we make our town the best choice among the 251 they can pick in Vermont, or if you prefer the 24 they can pick in Windham County? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And to segue on that point, there is a town planning community session that was rescheduled from yesterday. I mean, from tomorrow, whatever day we're on. From tomorrow to, I think, March 1st, right?
Yes. I didn't get the reschedule.
Because of the storm. So everybody's encouraged to go to that, because that is the public's opportunity to get all of these ideas on tax base and zoning and housing and all of these really great ideas that I've heard in this meeting. That's the place to air those. So I encourage everybody to go to those. I assume that if you can't go to it, they'll accept email comments at any point. So please get your ideas out to the Planning Commission, because they are in the process of writing the town plan, and the town plan does drive our zoning. So please do that. I would like to wrap the meeting up.
The website is up.
Okay, Vanessa, 1 second.
The website is up for the town plan process, and people can leave comments there at any time.
Okay.
And yes, absolutely, come to any and all of the meetings. Tomorrow's having been postponed until March 1st. Same place, same time, March 1st.
Okay.
And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion among the board? Okay, I do want to wrap this up. Elizabeth, do you have a brief comment on the Executive Office Financial Supplement to the Town Report? Okay, moving on. Is everybody set here? I think we're all set here, right? Moving on to other business closing comments. Does anybody have any closing comments?
Thank you for this.
Yeah, this is really awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's great to have it as a supplement to the town plan. It is a town plan, really. I mean, not town plan, town report.
Yeah.
It really is a town report. It's very succinct, and I like it.
We're really going to win the war now. The town.
Being creative.
Right. Karen's trying to win the town plan.
No, it won't happen this year. We got a few things.
Oh well.
Grand prize.
We're working on it.
Yes.
All right.
Next year.
Is there any public closing comments? No. That was a
3.5 hours.
Oh my gosh. So I'm trying my best.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Okay, so hearing none, we've got the next meeting that we have is town meeting, which is on March 7th, 2023, in person only. And then our next regular meeting will be March 8th, 2023, and that will also be a reorg meeting, right?
It's a reorganization.
Okay, which is the next day after town meeting, so I don't believe we have any candidates on here, but you are expected, well, we do have one, but
Yeah.
you're usually here anyway. So you are expected to attend the first meeting so that we can reorg.
We will have warrants that day too.
Yeah, it's a regular meeting, so we'll have a full meeting, right?
I don't know if I'll have a full meeting, because we gotta reorganize, and there's other things that the board has to vote on,
Okay,
and then we gotta do the warrants,
all right.
so.
No, like,
I'll make it, I'm
No
gonna
gentle
make it
period.
short for the newbies.
okay.
Don't scare them away.
No, I don't wanna do that.
It's either that or just like drop them into the fire and say, see what you just got yourself into. All right. So on that note, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.